Long ago, the tale kicks off with a dusty old drawing of heroes like a spark waiting to explode. Relive the time that legendary party teamed up with monsters to slam the brakes on disasters so huge they felt unstoppable. This crew's name was Legion, and once people heard it, they never forgot. And right at the front, steering the whole crew, was Shin, the guy who could translate anything and everything. He and his crew spent every day chasing the impossible side by side. And this is how Hao Shun and his crew stormed into the spotlight and made history. But just when Shin thinks he's got control, his teammate blurts out, "I'm sorry," and then he gets kicked out. He storms out, slams his fist on the table, and demands to know why this is happening. He reminds her of their promise to reach A rank together as a team, and then but he just keeps screaming that she knows it's the truth. Jason, the Golden Fleece's leader, erupts in yelling and demands, "Tell me, am I not good enough? Because a hero like him can't survive with anything less than way better teammates than that." Jason admits he sees how hard Shin is pushing, but Shin clenches his fist, snapping back that they've been friends since they were kids. No one else can match what he can do. And he's done everything just to keep up. Jason doesn't care at all. He roars that Shin's gift isn't made for combat, calling him half-baked for everything, from swords to magic, and that's when making. Medea steps in to end it. No hesitation, she's part of the group, and she goes for the throat. She locks eyes with him and snaps that he's nothing but a burden, which sends his world. That really lands. She reminds her that on their last quest, he couldn't even stick a real hit on a troll, and Shin drops his gaze, admits she's right, then immediately scrambles to defend himself by claiming he at least nailed the role of the perfect decoy. As he stares at his teammates, it hits him. They're not judging one battle. They're reading his entire track record, and the brutal truth lands he doesn't really have the skill to finish a fight. He stares at his scarred, rough hands, years of hard work carved into every cut, no slack, no skipped training yet inside. He knows his sword skills will never measure up to Jason's. And on top of that, he can't touch the high-level magic Medea uses, or the healing magic Asu's team pulled off, so he's trapped in a brutal spot, and Shin starts to feel like his special gift is running out of steam, while Medea just locks eyes with him, icy and unblinking, and tells him the party's stepping up to A rank now and they're about. And their whole plan is to forge Jason into a legendary hero, and she tells him right to his face with a universal translator gift like that, he won't stand a chance of keeping up once the insane battles they're setting up start coming. Medea tells Shin she's done, she can't keep up anymore, and Shin finally drops his gaze, accepting that they've already locked in their choice. He fires back, asking Asu if she realizes they're booting him out too, like, what's going on? Does she even know why? So if the whole team's really in, Jason immediately gets defensive, stammers that he already told her, then blurts out that she ignores him and goes straight to Medea. She doesn't blink once she stares him down and makes it clear she's dead serious, because the entire group signed off on this decision. She just starts walking off, murmuring his name one last time and thanking him for everything he's done for them so far. Shin stands there alone, jaw tight and fist clenched. As the truth hits him, she's right about him. He shouts to them one final time, tells Jason not to get cocky, then turns to Medea and orders her to watch over him, and she's like, yeah, of course, because at this point she's basically Jason's right-hand woman. Jason's temper explodes. He yells that he doesn't need a single shred of advice, then snaps at Shin that guys like him are losers who should just get lost. Jason yells at him to ditch every item and all that gold behind, like the fight might have already smashed it, but the guy just smirks and promises he'll deliver everything to the guild later. Hold up, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and don't miss the next one. For more hidden manga gems, now go on dare you to drop a comment. Comment down below. I am absolutely loving this, and I bet most of you are too. So you're not doing it, fine. All right, let's keep going. In this world, being an adventurer isn't a hobby, it's a real paycheck job, where people chase down monsters for a living, and it goes way beyond that. It's like treasure hunting, but every step is judged by a ranking system that climbs from apprentice to legends heroes who've literally saved the world. She admits he's no different from the rest chasing that elite hero rank, while he tells a bartender, yeah, I'll need another drink. He staggers down the city streets clutching a bottle, lost in the thought that his old party is still the top-rated crew in town. And he remembers it all kicking off in their tiny hometown, just him, Jason, and Ath, chasing the dream and sprinting out to make it big. They weren't always this powerful back then. Even a few measly goblins could smash the whole team's confidence and put them through hell. She was always right there for Jason, especially the moment he started losing it and blew up into one of his usual rampages. Somehow they pulled it off. Then the second Medea joined the squad, their reputation and careers skyrocketed, but while everyone else kept leveling up, Shin finally clocked the brutal truth he'd stopped growing completely, and he couldn't stay in the race with the rest of them. He clenches his fist in pure frustration, because the only reason he's stuck like this is the weird gift he was born with. In this world, every single person is born with a gift, this wild, basically random power that suddenly snaps into existence one day, and everything changes from there. Shinlai just lies there, staring at the ceiling, because this decision basically slams a door on your whole future, and he can't stop wondering if life would have felt better if he'd never chased the adventurer dream. He stares at his card, wishing the power it grants could actually help him fight, because right now, it's basically useless. And they flash back to those days when they were just kids, laughing and playing together back before life got this messy. She pushes on and storms into the Adventurers Guild right when a guy is shouting Yumi's name like he's in a full-blown emergency, and she's right in the middle of it as he barges through the heavy front doors and strides into the main hall. The second he steps inside, the entire room erupts into whispers, everyone's pointing like, "That's the guy who just got booted from the Golden Fleece." Some guys burst into laughter, basically saying, about time he got kicked out because a translator had no right to be in a top-tier group in the first place. Trash talk keeps raining down. People are straight up saying he's only here because his friends pity him, and that's where Yumi's hands finally start trembling. Then it all breaks, she snaps, screams for everyone to shut up, and lays into them because adventurers don't get to treat each other like trash. Angelina snaps at the noisy crowd to clear out, and the guys finally scatter like they've been caught, rushing back to what they were doing. She whirls around to find Sishin just standing there, then introduces herself as Angelina, a guild staffer, and tells him she's honestly relieved she finally found him. Angelina says she already heard the news about him getting kicked out, then grabs him and demands he follow her to the back so they can talk privately. When they finally get privacy, she takes every coin and piece of gear he got from his old crew, then records it for real, checking it into the guild's books like it's official business. Angelina gets so mad she can barely speak after everything he did for the Golden Fleece. She insists he shouldn't have to hand any of this back. Shin just stares at his hands, and the truth hits him. Jason was right. He's got zero real fight power, and honestly, he'd be lucky to land even a single hit on a D rank. But Angelina isn't having any of it. She storms in and yells that he couldn't be more wrong about who he is. She locks eyes with him and tells him, with full confidence, that he's an easy C-rank adventurer, party or no party. She even offers to set him up with another elite beer ant group right away, and they've been totally swamped by her kindness. Shin softly tells her he wants to try the solo life for a little while, and it hits her that she'd been pushing too hard, so she blurts an instant apology. Shin's eyes sharpen. He's dead set on proving what he can do when he's on his own, and he tells Angelina that her support was exactly the kick he needed. And Angelina clocks the moment is finally right. She calls out to him and tells him she needs his help with a specific quest. She yanks out a folder and tells him the caves nearby just exploded with an orc outbreak, then leans in and asks if he'll go over there and wipe them out. And she tells him, "Bring me those ears like you always do, and I'll make sure you walk away with a fat bounty for this job." But she's not done. She's got her own special request. Can he use that method of his to explore the cave's deepest depths? She knows this job adds extra sweat to the pile, so she makes him a straight promise and extra bonus for the investigation on top of the usual reward. Angelina grabbed his attention and promised she'd keep repeating herself until he finally got it, because she'd seen how hard he'd fought for his old group and the guild. She flashes him a huge, warm smile, grips his hand tight, and promises, "Yeah, it's awful right now, but trust me, something amazing is coming. I've watched enough adventurers to know it's guaranteed." Shun's face floods red as he blurts out a shaky, "Thank you." Then he suddenly snaps and asks her out for dinner, only to instantly panic, backpedal hard, and insist he was totally joking. Angelina just freezes on the spot, eyes wide, mouth gaping, and in her head she's panicking, screaming at herself for even saying any of it to him. Angelina leans in and tells Shin she's got 2 conditions for the job first. He has to come back in one piece, and just as Shin starts to press her for the second, when she winks at him and demands he take her out to a seriously good restaurant, she flashes a teasing grin, asks if he's got a deal, and Shin's so pumped he practically rockets out the door, screaming at the top of his lungs with pure joy. He hustles to the town's carriage stop, just so he can snag a ride straight out to the dungeon. While he's there, one of the horses clocks his amazing mood and asks if anything good happened. Shen grins and says yes, and the horse shuts down the small talk like, "Cool, just give me that carrot." The horse blurts that it's craving fresh green grass, and Shin just nods like, "Don't worry, I've got this." He stops and thinks, wait, so that's how my translator gift actually works. It lets him chat with animals and even monsters, but deep down, he still can't stop wishing he'd gotten a killer combat gift like Sword Saint. He knows that if that power, or whatever it was meant to take down Jason and the rest, they probably wouldn't have kicked him out in the first place. But as he sits in the carriage, a gang of rough-looking guys barges in and demands to know if he minds them taking the seat with him. Rough-looking thugs in the carriage clock a lone girl with her hood up, and one of them jabs a finger at her like, "Hey, she." She looks like she's heading out alone, so he steps in, leans close, and asks if she'll team up with them, swearing she'll get a fair cut of whatever they find, but then the words catch him. But the guy bursts into laughter and says the deal also covers nighttime activities, and Shin just sits there watching it unfold, thinking the offer isn't half bad right up until the girl shuts him down in an instant. She flat out says she won't team up with anyone weaker than her, then adds that even some little kid could do a better job hitting on girls. The second he snaps, he screams at her, jerks back his massive fist to shut her up, and Shin realizes this is about to blow up in their faces, yet before the guy can even throw a punch, the girl snaps into motion like lightning, then flips him clean over her shoulder. He crashes onto the carriage floor, shaking with pure terror, while she snaps a blade into his face and growls that if he keeps this up, he'll never draw another breath. He sputters and trembles, begging her to stop, insisting it was just a joke. She's frozen there in pure shock. Then he realizes her speed is on a whole other tier, even faster than Jason. The girl snaps her attention to him, and Shin scrambles to explain it, saying she'd probably get a cheer if she took the guy out, until he snaps his words back and admits they'd actually turn on her and attack. He just scratches his head and promises, "Got it, I'll remember," then walks off, leaving her frozen, staring, desperate to figure out what he even meant. The hooded girl snaps her sword back into place and shrugs it off as nothing, while Shin just freezes there, stunned, like he can't believe what he witnessed. But once everyone breaks off and disappears into the woods, Shin just flashes a quick goodbye to the crew, then turns his back on the mysterious girl. He stands on a pitch-black cliff, torch blazing in his grip, whispering to himself that the time for excuses is over, and he's finally ready to break free and move out. And then he spots a familiar face oozing off the cave wall. "Shen, hello." The slime shoots back. "It's been way too long since we last saw each other." Shen drops into a seat to chat, while that stray slime lime chews down herbs like it owns the place. Then Shen spots the truth. This little guy isn't just wandering around, he's stuck in the middle of a solo exam. So, Lime shoots Shin a question. "So you're really staying solo from now on?" And Shin answers, "Not forever," but then he can't shake the feeling that Slime's asking for a reason. Lime cuts straight to it and asks if she'd be willing to bring him along on his journey. He double-checks that the annoying blonde leader and the gloomy mage are finally gone because he's itching to dive into an adventure with Shin. Shin lights up at the offer, staring at that tiny slime like it just made his day. Lime starts cracking jokes about rescuing a princess someday, and just like that, boom, Lime the slime officially slides into Shin's party. Lime bounces along on Shin's shoulder as they kick off their journey, peppering him with one big question: what's the exact plan? Shen cranes his neck toward the bats in the cave, tells them they're hunting an orc outbreak, and fires off the question Lime. Have you heard anything? So Lime stops dead, flashes back, and tells everyone he heard the orcs just crowned a brand new leader. Turns out this new chieftain despises humans so fiercely that the orcs who usually lurk in the shadows have started tearing through the world. Shun realizes the entire pack's attitude flipped just because one guy at the top pulled the strings, while Lime snaps at him to watch his back, and then they agreed they'd have to go way more careful with the investigation, thanking that little slime for the heads up. He spots 3 goblins up ahead, no big danger right now, but ignoring them means trouble will come back later with a vengeance. So Shen snatches his sword, turns to Lime, and asks, "Mind if I go ahead and wipe them out, because he can't stand it anymore when they always strike the second they spot him." He rockets forward and cuts straight through the crowd in one clean, savage swing of his blade. Sheathed his sword, Shin tells Lime was finally done, and that slime practically cheered him on for the lightning-fast job. Lime starts blurting out weird stuff about some website, but she just pokes him and snaps, "Hold on, we just met today." She gives the slime session a name, then nods hard like, "Yep, this is exactly the plan we agreed on earlier." He strides through the pitch-black cave with a torch, and then wham, an arrow zips past his face and slams into the ground right at his feet. Sotian freezes mid-step, whips his head toward the shadows, and snaps. What the hell is this supposed to mean? A crew of guys storms in, and their leader jeers at Shin's calm face, calling him a washed-up beer-ank adventurer who's rotting away. Shun just stares them down and snaps that he has zero memory of doing anything to make them this furious. Then he clocks them as the same men he saw back at the tavern. The leader barks at him to shut up, snarling that Shin's old captain made them look like fools, and now they're dumping all that rage on him. Even after the exile, Shin finally clocks it Jason is still messing with him, because that dude has always been terrible at getting anyone to understand what he's saying. He tells them, "You're only picking on me because I'm alone," and then slams the truth. "You're cowards, and that's why you're all trapped at C-Ring." He straight up admits taking on 8 guys at once is going to be absolute hell. Then he spins back around and demands, "Are you really sure about this?" Shin snaps the group back to the guild's rules, no brawling between adventurers, but the bald leader just laughs in his face and plays the "don't you care" card, so who actually gives a damn? He leans in, eyes blazing with menace, and threatens that if Shin keels over in this cave, there won't be a soul left to report a thing. Shun doesn't even flinch, he just tells them that if they're going to act like that, then he has no reason left to hold back. The cave stills for a heartbeat, and even with Shin just standing there with his torch, the leader starts squirming with nervous energy. He tries to shake it off by snapping at Shin to stop trying to scare them. Then he demands what kind of loser with a trash, a translator, and that pathetic gift could possibly. Shin shoots him a cold smirk and promises he'll show them how a translator really fights. Then the leader snarls, "It's a bluff," and orders his boys to grab him. Right before they can even move, a giant thump rips through the tunnel and echoes wild, so the goons go stiff, freeze, and stare around like they've just heard doom. Right then, Lime rockets into the spotlight, yells that the hero is finally here, and rushes out an apology because getting the orcs over took a whole minute. Shin yells, grinning like the trap did exactly what he wanted. Then one of the guys suddenly goes pale and yells that a whole pack of orcs is bearing down on them, and they're in serious trouble. Orcs burst out of the darkness in a roaring charge, their leader jabbing a finger and shouting for the pack to slaughter the humans, because their chief is going to grin wide when he hears they've got his catch. That bald leader is sweating buckets, begging Shin, "Please, can we team up and just survive?" Shin tightens his grip on his blade and steels himself. He's not dying here, not when he's already stunned by how brazen these guys are. He stares down the 15 orcs and realizes they might actually win if every one of them goes all in, fighting like it matters, because he can't stand the idea of those guys dying and making it taste like regret. We'll hold back and cover them for a moment, then bolt the second a real opening shows up. She swats an arrow out of the air and tells the old man to stay sharp because if he slips, he's done. He spots the enemy leader in the back and yells at everyone to pick off the big threats from far away while they scramble to keep the line from breaking. Shin feels like it's time to make a break, Then the cave starts acting all wrong and he snaps. What's going on? He tells Lime the bats are losing their minds, wondering if the slime can sense something deadly in the air, and Lime thinks he's right. Suddenly, someone screams that they can smell a fight in the air, and Lime's like, "Wait, is that you guy finally here?" A hulking orc brandishes a jagged knife, barrels straight into the light, and roars at everyone, begging to be let in and have a part in the fun. The hooded stranger slips past the human line like a shadow, rushing straight for. A thunderous voice roars out, demanding to know who the strongest soul in the place is, and it blindsides the old man and the orcs completely. A hulking orc with a scarf starts roaring, daring anyone to step in, so what happens next is about to get wild, but Shin finally gets it no matter how loud that big talk is. The other orc is dead right. Normal humans can't understand a single word these monsters say. Rage flares in the bald guy's eyes as he snaps, "Shut your mouth," and he swings his sword straight at the monster, but before he can finish, they cut him down. Shin starts spiraling. He can't believe a C-rank adventurer just got dropped in an instant, and he's stuck wondering if this monster has some kind of special gift that lets it land a hit at will. An orc lunges at Shin and blurts out that he can tell from the way Shin moves. Shin is the true powerhouse of the group. Shin roars that Lime better get ready right now because, since the slime was already in motion, he kept insisting he knew exactly what had to be done while it kept moving. As the orc crashes in with a brutal heavy strike, it drives Shin to jam his sword up with all his might just to block. The orc is absolutely stunned. Shin actually ate his massive strike head on, and he even has to admit, "All right, you're not bad at all." He tries to crush Lime with his massive foot, but the little slime darts away so fast it's barely even funny so long. So Lime just ricochets off with a casual whoops, while that orc's stomp lands in nothing but dirt. The orc gets a kick out of Shin's tamed slime and leans in to tell him straight up that he's one of the most interesting humans he's ever seen. Then the swords collide again hard. Shin strains to keep him from going further, and all he can think is, this guy is pure trouble. The longer they clash, the clearer it gets this monster might be far stronger than Jason ever expected. Right then, Shin jerks as a voice snaps in his ear. "Run left." Then it roars again. "Now run right." And he moves on command, slipping out of the way at the last second so the hooded girl swoops in and blasts the monster with a swinging strike. The girl bursts out, "I knew it," then taps her finger to her head like, "I'm hearing my prophecy perfectly, so that can only mean." So yeah, right there, both of them finally stand side by side, locked in and ready to smash this massive orc for good. The hooded girl snaps her gaze back to Chin, weighing whether he's really okay, because even after she's the one who hauled him out, she still calls him her savior. Shen tries to squeeze a thank you out, but the words tangle in his mouth mostly because he's still stunned. She just called him a savior. As he tilts his gaze up at her, he's hit with full-on shock. Her hair burns a blazing red brighter than any fire, and it's like the world cuts out for him as he stares, and, glittering under the light, it swirls around her then. Right then, the moment turns deadly serious as the girl stands there like she's been doing this forever, her cloak snapping in the wind like a challenge. Her blade whips through the air in a blur, slicing with a sharp, electrifying snap that... Then it hits Shin. He finally recognizes her, because she's the same mysterious woman he saw in the carriage earlier. The orc gets shoved back and drops to one knee, while Shin and the girl stand shoulder to shoulder, ready to end this fight right there in the cave. The girl's face twists with pure annoyance of all things. That monster actually managed to deflect her strike, but the orc flashes a grin and tells her, straight up, that she's not half bad for a human girl. An orc rumbled that he'll never forgive her for crashing his fight, then admitted maybe this twist could make everything way more interesting. Meanwhile, Shin just stood there, looking utterly wrecked with stress. She brushes off the whole mess, flat out ignoring the monster's spiel, calling him nothing but babble, then pushing, "So are you finally ready to fight for real?" But, deep down, she can't help but wonder maybe this monster is nothing but a complete idiot. She slides her sword free in one smooth snap, tells him she really does appreciate his offer, and she's decided right here, right now she's going to finish him. She slams forward with a massive strike, but the orc's just as quick. He snaps his blade up and blocks it, making Shin's eyes go wide as he can't believe the monster actually shut her down. She flips through the air, grinning like it's fascinating, while the orc starts. Right at her, he lunges, arm outstretched to grab her, but she doesn't even blink. She just locks onto his movement until she whips around in a blur and hammers a brutal slash straight into the monster's side, carving it open deep. And she doesn't even pause. She rockets forward again, stacking another crushing blow on him while he's still down. The girl spits, "Orca bastard," and he just growls back, then fires off, "Little bitch," both of them. They're finally grinning, and the girl's staring at the monster like it's way better than she ever expected. Shin clocks the look on her face and realizes it's not just one monster. Both fighters are absurdly strong, and even he's desperate to help, but there's not a single crack in their rhythm, no way in, no opening to slide right into the middle of them. They're going back and forth like maniacs. She's seriously impressed. He's holding his ground this well, but the orc he gets even more fired up and demands she finally tells him her name. Suddenly, the monster lunges in and clamps her blade in his bare hand like he's trying to rip it from her grip, and that's when it happens. Makes Shin's stomach drop because she realizes the guy intentionally got hit just to lure her into his trap. While Shin's mind races over what the monster will do next, the girl snaps she's done waiting, and she's ending this right now. He swung his massive flame sword and boom, an enormous explosion ripped through everything. She's totally stunned by the girl's power, and he can't believe she just unleashed that insane blaze without a single chant, so now he's staring at her like, was that her real finisher? While Lime gapes at the smoke, convinced the orc is toast after that brutal blast, Shin barrels over to check the slime still breathing, still intact, and he's just relieved his friend's okay. Then the smoke thins, and two enormous boots slam into view. Still planted on the ground, the girl whips around, stunned that the monster is still standing. The orc general stands his ground, a dark aura whipping around him, and tells her that now that she showed him a move, he's about to strike back right this instant. Shin watches the whole disaster unfold from the sidelines, and dread claws at his gut because that monster is about to pull something insane. Suddenly, the orc explodes forward, swinging a brutal, heavy strike so fast and crushing that the girl barely even gets a breath before she realizes she's in serious trouble. A giant blade whips through the sky, splattered with blood from the brutal impact of the clash. The weapon crashes into the rock wall with a brutal slam, shaking from the shockwave as the orc looms over the girl. She managed to yank herself out of the way at the last second, dodging a hit that would have ended everything on the spot. The orc stares at her, finally admitting she's the very first person to ever dodge his Yuya Konkin, and you can tell he's genuinely impressed. The girl stared at the orc, then admitted he wasn't all that bad because she truly believed her last strike would have finished him for good. But the monster won't let her catch her breath, snapping into another ferocious attack that blindsides her completely. Lime screams that something's seriously off with the guy, and Shin clocks it too somehow. Even with all those wounds, the orc's speed and power keep surging higher. As the girl digs in and fights for her life, Lime drops a brutal comment things are getting really bad for her, and doubts start crawling in. Can she even do anything at all? The orc erupts in a deafening roar straight into her face, crushing her senses with sheer force until her guard can barely hold. The monster is just shrieking in panic, totally overwhelmed by the heat of the moment, and he looms over the girl, lifting his weapon high, and it looks like one savage swing is about to end it all. Shin is absolutely horrified when he spots the orc slaughtering his own people, and he can't believe it. Wait, did you just cut down your comrades? But the orc doesn't give a damn. He snaps at them to get out of his way, because nothing on this earth is stopping his fight, leading. Shin can't help but wonder if this crazy mindset is what folks mean by a warrior's pride until he spots something else. The hooded girl slams on the brakes, turns her head, and freezes because deep down, she can feel something about the situation is dead wrong as. The orc finally dares to speak up, and he throws out a sincere apology for the chaos his partner just dragged into everyone's lives. Shin strides up to the fallen enemies, squares off with the orc warrior, and snaps that he's got something to say, something that will, which the The girl just wouldn't let it go. She fired back, asking what he thinks he's doing, talking to a monster like that. Shen keeps it straight. He tells her to back off and hand the whole mess to him for a minute. The orc snaps if Shin's just another obstacle in his path, and Shin shuts him down fast. No, that's not what this is. He walks up to the monster and drops a bombshell proposal. He'll patch him back up so they can restart the duel the right way. The girl is absolutely stunned, blurting, "What are you thinking?" But Shin just grins and tells her, "Just watch," and reaches down to snatch something, while the girl just stares utterly lost, like she can't even process what she's seeing. Shin tells them straight up if they don't fix those wounds, the orc drops dead right here, but if they heal him, he gets back up and fights another day. Shin leans in and grills the orc about how he feels after the healing, and the monster just stands there, letting the dark energy around him finally fade away. The orc stares at his own body, shocked that somehow he feels completely fine. He starts flexing his fingers and clicking off these weird little sounds, then freezes, because his wounds are completely gone. The orc whirls his weapon around to see how strong he is, and Chen immediately steps in telling him he's still bleeding out way too much and needs to calm down. The monster visibly shuddered and sweated as he leaned on his sword, forcing out that he'll let Shin off today only for Shin to stare like, "Are you seriously a complete idiot?" Shen snaps at him not to go dying before their real fight, then stops cold when he realizes he doesn't even know his name. The orc, Swain, declares his name, then Shen steps in, introduces himself, and claps his hand in a shake before they both split off in different directions. As they stride deeper into the forest, a voice slices through the silence like a blade. The hooded girl stood there with her arms locked tight across her chest, radiating pure annoyance as she snapped at Shin. "What do you think you're doing?" And he waved it off like it was nothing, like he was just handling some easy negotiation. He blurts out an apology for not asking her first, saying the only way to get the orc to back off was to promise a rematch, but she snaps back that the rematch isn't even the part that's bothering her. The hooded girl is totally stunned. She blurts out to Shin, "You're serious, you can really talk to monsters." He casually tosses crumbs to a little bird as he explains his gift. He can talk to anything that has a will, and the way he says it makes it sound absolutely incredible. Shin shrugs it off like a total dud gift purely good for talking, and even reminds everyone it got him booted from his old party. He flashes her a real smile and tells her, "Sure, it's a weak power, but hearing it from you makes me crazy happy." She blushed and panicked, wondering if he was really that clueless, then leaned in and asked, "So what did my voice sound like to you?" She finally clicks, realizing why her voice ever sounded doubled, and the moment her secret snaps into place. But he doesn't even blink, waving his hand and thanking her like crazy, because she just saved his life twice. The girl's eyes glass over and her cheeks burn as she finally gives in to the flood of emotions, knowing he can hear her true feelings loud and clear. She snaps, lunges at Shin, and traps him in a crushing hug, sobbing like she just found the people who saved her at last. While the bird is just basking in the fact she smells amazing, Shin jolts into panic the second she touches him because she's way too soft. Lime suddenly bursts up between them and flashes a super casual greeting to the both of them. Cassandra scoots back, blushing, and admits she's totally lost in all of it. Turns out her full name is Cassandra, and everybody knows her as the Enchanting Prophet. Shen snaps that she's the one who should apologize, then steps forward and reintroduces himself and says Lime's name again. She says she's been a solo player too, and I'm still blown away that he can talk to beasts like it's nothing. She flashes a warm smile and tells her she's got a really nice name, then her sentence cuts off. Shot a quick look at the sky, then told him, "If you're cool with it." She wants him on her side, and she straight up asks if she's actually serious about starting a party. He's completely blindsided, and he keeps repeating her words back to her, like he still can't wrap his head around what he just heard. Cassandra just stares at him, cheeks blushing, and with a soft smile asks, "Do you really mean it, or are you just talking?" Things get rolling again as the flow snaps back to the main guild headquarters. Angelina scans the loot Shin hauled back and spots the orc tribe is starting to fidget under their new leader. She then grills him about that gifted orc he mentioned while they count today's harvest. And he thanks them for the delivery, grinning like, This is exactly the info we need to wrap up the plan for the big hunt. She mouths the words back to her, and Angelina drops the bomb that the guild is about to release an official announcement about it real soon. She says she'll be absolutely thrilled if he finally steps up and takes that request on when the time comes. Shin stops for a second, clocks everything that just happened today, and then bam! He remembers those guys from earlier. He leans in and asks her straight up if the guys who tried to start beef with him this morning ever made it back to the guild. Angelina says she hasn't heard a single word from them yet, and even though the guys are veterans who shouldn't go doing anything dumb, worry still nibbles at her like it's got teeth, and demands to know if anything happened out there that she needs to tell him. Before he can even get a word out, she cuts him off with a sharp look and declares, no matter what hits them, she'll always stand right by his side. Shin breaks into nervous sweat, trying to play it cool, and then blurts that they just happened to run into each other in the cave, and Angelina locks eyes with him for a beat, tells him she won't press him about it if that's his story, but you can practically see her suspicion screaming. Suddenly, she drops her hands hard, leans in close, and demands to know who was that woman he came back with. A scary look snaps onto her face, and she demands seriously, was he actually trying to hit on girls while he was supposed to be out adventuring? She slumps onto the counter, sulking hard as she grumbles that it's totally wrong to go hunting hookups inside a dungeon. Sheen panics, flails his hands, and insists she's got it all backwards. He swears that woman just saved him from a total mess. So he pushes the conversation forward, firing off a question, does she really know what kind of adventure Cassandra actually is? Angelina yanks up the guild records and realizes, way too late, that she's not just anyone, she's got a whole reputation under the name Cassandra of Calamity. The records pin her as a beer-anked solo adventurer with blood-red hair, so she still steals the spotlight even when she's charging into high-level dungeons with a party. She's infamous as a razor-sharp swordswoman, swinging a one-of-a-kind blade from the east, the legendary katana. The records call Cassandra the ultimate survivor, the only one who always crawls back alive from her missions, and Angelina. Lena straight up admits her skills are the real deal, then laughs and says she'd never tell anyone to actually tag along with her party. She admits it's only a rumor, so nobody can be 100 sure, but she can't shake the old truth where there's smoke. There's usually fire. She listens, her mind spiraling as she wonders. If that's the truth, then wow, thanks, Angelina, for all the help with the info. Shin replays that first meeting in his head. He refuses to believe she's the type to be bad, convinced there's more to the truth, so he decides to go straight to the source if he gets played. He'll swallow it as his own fault and blame that gut feeling he should have trusted, but his. But right when his thoughts start running wild, Angelina suddenly blurts his name and yanks his attention back to the moment. Shen jolts up and blurts out an answer, then flips the vibe asking when the two of them are going to go grab dinner. She fidgets with her hair, shaky sounding, and says the guild finally quieted down enough for her to steal a well-earned break. She gets totally flustered and blurts out, asking if she's really sure she wants to go with him, just the two of them alone. Angelina shoots him a warm look and says yes, because the truth is, he's always been taking such amazing care of her at the guild. So she says she's got her solo life totally under control now, and then like it's a no-brainer, they head out to celebrate. Shan tells her he'll hit you up soon because inside, he's completely losing his mind with pure excitement. He starts to wonder if his luck is finally flipping around, because it's honestly wild that a girl wants to grab dinner with him, like, for real. That's a massive snap from his days with the Argonauts back then, every girl fixated on Jason until then. He tries to steady his nerves, telling himself that Angelina's just a genuinely kind person, and this has to be nothing more than pure, professional vibes. And just when he's lost in his thoughts, Cassandra finally storms in and demands to know if he made her wait. She shrugs and tells him it's nothing, because she actually loves touring the guilds in fresh towns, just to size up how tough the local adventurers really are. They sit together, and she clocks his smile, then blurts, "Why are you grinning like a maniac? Did something good happen?" Shin's instantly flustered, scrambling to deny it, swearing he's not grinning at all, because he's supposed to be the cool, serious type. Shin jabs a finger at the menu and tells her, loud and certain, that the herb pork sauté is the move. So Cassandra flashes him a huge grin and tells him she'll trust his word because she can't wait to get her hands on that food. She glows in a great mood and asks, "Is this your favorite dish?" Then she grins and admits she's not even thinking about the food, because it's been ages since she last ate with someone else. She suddenly blushes hard and drops her gaze, thinking, "Am I really getting too carried away right now?" Gazing up at him with a bashful smile, she blurts, "Do you think it's weird that I'm this crazy excited?" Shin just bursts into laughter, tells her today's on him, and says she can order whatever her heart desires. After they're done eating, Shin shoots up and says, "Okay, let's make this official," then grabs the moment and tells her to follow him. He holds the door for her and guides her to a quieter spot where they can talk business without anyone butting in. Once they finally settle in, Shin yanks out his card and says, "Let's start by trading guild cards," then instantly asks her if she's got a problem with it. Cassandra snatches her card and declares it's the smartest move because it lets her dodge explaining her whole situation out loud. Shun stares at the card, and his jaw drops because it's jam-packed with rare, top-tier skills he's never even heard of. He tries to read the gift details, but parts of it are deliberately blacked out, and then it hits him. She's a half-breed. Cassandra grabs his attention and tells him she's got 2 things she has to say. Then she tugs at her hair and confesses that, yeah, he probably already knows, she's not exactly 100% human. With a sad glance over her shoulder, she admits she's half-breed with demon blood, and he's totally shaken, blurting out, "Wait, are you really telling me you're a demon?" He has to be certain, so he leans in and asks if she's talking about those demons straight out of the legends. He starts mulling over the demon race, those legendary entities whose power is basically off the charts. People swear they're really descendants of gods cast out of power after they got crushed in a massive war, then vowed to take over the world. Almost nobody alive today has actually seen one for real, but everyone still swears by the legends because they're ridiculously powerful. Shin swears they're real, but they hide like full-on hermits, Cassandra chimes in, saying sure, it's her bloodline, yet she's never actually laid eyes on one impersonate. Then it finally hits him. Legendary god-tier blood is actually running through her veins right this second. Sheen rubs his chin, mind spinning as he tries to process that she's a half-demon, and she calmly nods, confirming it with zero hesitation. Cassandra drinks it all in and instantly clocks it. Shin's got the exact skills needed to surge forward. With that gift of foresight, the second the fighting erupts, everything suddenly feels like it's already been mapped out. Shin can't stop staring. He's thinking he's the luckiest guy alive, because somehow she's on his team. Cassandra whips out her gifts again, telling everyone her power, the enchanting prophet, can do 2 completely different things. Her eyes ignite as she swears she can slice a few seconds off what happens next, and then she drops the real shocker she can also see way ahead, like a living oracle. Shen tells her it's basically the most useful power ever, and she's like, yeah, it sounds flawless. But then she leans in and admits there's one gigantic catch. She just freezes, completely stunned, because what she's about to say next could change everything. She tells him her powers are the only thing keeping her alive, but every time she glimpses the future, the rest of the world twists it into something totally wrong. Hearing this hits Shin hard. Straight up sounds like the same hell he went through back when he was still with his old party, and Cassandra tells them a giant tsunami is on the way, yet they stare her down and shrug like it's just another nice, peaceful day. Cassandra's eyes drop hard as she mutters that her gift feels more like a curse, because no one ever gets what she's trying to say. But then Shin clocks it. His translation power isn't just working anymore. It's catching her real voice. And that's why those creepy echoes have been haunting him the whole time. Cassandra's heart races as she realizes Sinchen is the only living person who can truly hear her prophecies. He's basically the savior she's been praying for, and when she looks at him, pure hope shines straight through her eyes. She loops back to that earlier conversation, where joining forces was the real spark. She admits that even though her gift usually makes people doubt her, her physical combat skills are legit, and that they'd make an unstoppable team. She's so desperate to tag along that she lets him pick every single quest and promises she'll keep only 10 of the money, so he tells her there's just one real rule they have to follow if they want to become a party. Cassandra's nerves hit her hard, so she quickly offers to dye her hair if that would make things easier for him. She shuts him down on the spot, but then he tells her he thinks her hair is beautiful, blazing like flames the moment she saved him. Cassandra's cheeks blaze red as she blurts to Shin, "Do you really like me looking like this?" Totally stunned he'd even say something like that about her hair. She shoots a glance away, doubts crashing in, and blurts, "Okay, is this color supposed to look creepy? Because it's so wildly wrong it feels like it couldn't possibly belong to a normal human." She insists the color is just proof. She isn't pure, but Shin shrugs it off and hits back, "Why does it even matter? If it's beautiful, then it's beautiful." Shin jabs a finger at himself and basically goes, "Yeah, that's me, the kind of guy who literally chills and parties with slimes." Telling her straight up, he says he doesn't care at all that she's half demon. None of it matters to him because with his translation gift, he knows for a fact there are still plenty of good monsters out there. So he decides the only thing that truly matters is the kind of person you are inside, and that's what sets. Cassandra's worry spiraled even higher. She demanded to know if all this was just going to make it worse, especially after he'd clearly heard the disgusting nickname people were calling her. Shen rolls the word disaster around in his head, then locks eyes with her and declares, right to her face, that he knows the real truth. As everyone else misread her gift, she was the only one who truly had his back, pushing him forward with honest advice. Still, she hauled herself through it, fighting off a giant pig demon with everything she had just to keep him safe. Shin tells them he's genuinely grateful they came clean with him still doing it, even though they knew it could backfire. Then he locks eyes with her, flashes a huge grin, tells her he trusts her with everything while Cassandra just stands there, softly whispering his name. He spirals with excitement, leans in close, and blurts out that honestly, she's just an insanely good person, and Cassandra just freezes on the spot, replaying how she used her gift to spill prophecies to everyone. She admits he's all in on helping people, not polishing his own image, and that makes him look like a total hero to her. She whips her head away, cheeks blazing, calls him an idiot for being so damn sweet, then quietly thanks him anyway. She snaps back into focus, gets down to business, and demands to know what kind of deal Shin wants so they can team up. Shun tells her, "I'm no savior, and if they're really going to throw a party, then they'll do it as equals so." So he decides to split every reward right down the middle, pair up for their quests, and choose together because he believes you've got to be able to call each other out when someone messes up, and trust has to run both directions, no exceptions. Shun dips his gaze, flashes a calm smile, and admits he can't be the savior. But he leans in and tells Cassandra he truly wants to be her partner, and she shoots back, "Are you sure, right?" as the question hangs there. She hesitates, then glances aside and tells her, straight up, that it's exactly what matters to him most. He chuckles a little awkwardly, admits he's the weaker one in this mess, then shrugs like, "Yeah, but I'm great at chores and all that, so." Cassandra leans over the railing and tells him, "I'll train you myself, we're partners." Then she starts pushing for an answer from him, like, "So what's the plan?" Making looks like he's about to say it. If she's truly cool with that, she turns and starts walking away, cutting a warning into the air, tell him to be ready, because her training is brutal. She glances over with a fierce, teasing grin and tells him that no matter how hard he sobs and pleads, she's not letting him go. Night slips away, and by sunrise the two of them rush back to the guild, where Angelina storms in with a terrifying grin, asking whether they're actually throwing a party and whether her advice meant absolutely nothing. She shrugs it off, says it's no big deal after all. They're just an adventurer and a guild worker, nothing more. Angelina's eyes blaze with annoyance as she stares at Shin and fires back, asking if he even cares about the advice she gave him earlier because, since Shin finally realizes they warned him about her, he pushes forward anyway because he has to clear the rumors as one massive misunderstanding, while Cassandra's stuck watching the guild worker eye him like he's nothing but trash. With her clipboard in hand, Angelina leans in and tells Cassandra, "Since you're B rank and that womanizer Shin is only C rank, we've got to pull a special request. This is your certification exam, and it starts now." Shin just freezes on the spot, stunned as it hits him she's treating him even worse than last time. Angelina presses on, saying they're both veterans, but Cassandra can't be left to battle alone just because she's the higher-ranking one. She tells them, if we pull this off without a single mishap, the party gets officially bumped up to B rank. Cassandra is blazing with adrenaline, pushing Shin like this is their first real mission together, and they need to go all in while Shin slumps there, looking wiped out, barely mustering a weak little nod. Angelina stops them cold, saying she's just curious, then she leans in, demanding to know how they really ended up teaming up, and she straight up asks Cassandra if she should go after her hard, especially after she already shut down Angelina's offer. Sheen completely snaps, staring like, what the hell am I saying? As she scrambles to explain that there's a real reason behind everything. Angelina clocks it. Shin's original move was to go solo, but Cassandra won't let him. She's basically begging him to team up, promising she'll do literally anything if he'll just let her ride with him, which means. And it makes everything hit way harder for Shin. Cassandra tries to take the fall, claiming she was the one who pushed for the party. But Angelina's disgusted to her core. She can't wrap her head around the fact that Shin has this girl offering to do anything for him. Cassandra doesn't even realize the danger, cheerfully assuring the guild staff, I'm not trash and I'm definitely not a villain. She keeps piling dirt deeper, then drops that Shen complimented her hair and called it beautiful just last night, right as Shen starts to unravel, panicking and warning her to watch every word before. Cassandra fires back that some trash guy wouldn't be this nice, but Angelina snaps right on to the last night part, totally spiraling into even harsher judgment about how they somehow got so close on their very first day. She fires off a brutal little jab about how she knows for a fact he's got experience with women, and you can tell she's not buying his innocent act for a second. She even drags up his past, the Golden Fleece, hinting that back then he was already getting way too cozy with a Sue like it was nothing. Angelina finally snaps and tells him to shut up because his trashy behavior feels contagious, and she wants nothing to do with it. Shin is losing his mind, frantically trying to convince everyone there's a reason for everything, even why his hair is tied up in the first place. But then Cassandra's emotions spiral. She demands to know if he was lying last night and whether he really hates her hair, so Shin has to scramble and swear it's all true, insisting he's for real and that her hair is absolutely beautiful. Angelina's done with the whole mess. She snaps at them to go make out somewhere else because she's got real work to handle. The moment she confirms they've officially been accepted, Shin bolts out of there, shouting at Cassandra to sprint after him. Angelina shoots her hand out toward him just for a heartbeat. Her face says she can't stand the idea of losing him, so she yells one last time, begging him to come back home safe and sound. Sheen flashes this massive grin and shoots her a thumbs up like, don't worry, because he's 100% sure he'll come back safe and whole. All right, next up, the beer ant quest kicks off for real, and the two of them dive straight into the forest to start their troll hunt, which has them. Feeling totally fired up, he tells Cassandra it's go time, and she's right there beside him. Cassandra flashes him a thumbs up, saying if he just uses the technique she taught him, this will be a total breeze. Chen promises he'll go all in, but she starts spiraling, pointing out that they've got to track down the target first, because scouting is usually the toughest part of the whole job. Shin stares at her, totally baffled, then blurts out that the scouting part is already done because this time he's sprinted way ahead of her. Shen kneels to chat with a little bird, then translates for Cassandra, telling her 3 creatures in the forest will lead them straight to the right spot. Cassandra's eyes light up as she leans in, praising his translation like it's the perfect lifesaver. So Shin admits straight up just chatting won't win you real friends, but because he's got that monster-slaying talent, his base is packed with allies. Cassandra realizes he probably chatted with the slimes and bats in that cave, and she's wondering if he's using them to sniff out where the monsters are hiding. Sheen pushes into the brutal, overgrown forest, fighting through the rough ground as he starts moving, and it doesn't take long before he spots something too perfect to ignore and reaches for it. He flaunts a handful of grapes and rare herbs, and Cassandra just can't process how he scored that top-tier quality so fast. She can't believe a party would dump someone with his kind of talent, so she shoots him a look and asks, "Did they kick you out for flirting with every girl in the room?" She totally snaps and starts flailing his hands in the air, screaming that he got fired because he's weak, and she already saw his low stats with her own eyes. He glances aside and claims those girls in Medea were nothing but his childhood friends, and that everyone's been telling him his work is only ever half-hearted. Cassandra grabs Shin's attention and tells him to drop the whole girls talk and focus because he's got it twisted, and every single person at a party has a job they're meant to handle. And it's all about positioning frontline fighters, lock in close while the magic users rain destruction from the back, so she fires back that even if he thinks his skills are just okay, being solidly intermediate at everything makes him the ultimate support. She's totally stunned by how much this solo player knows, and she can't help but turn bright red as she admits she studied up just for a moment like this. She glances down for a split second, and the weight of everything crashes into her. Then she admits, it feels like a massive responsibility. She refuses to let the mood sink, then blasts out excited yelling that they're about to throw the best party ever. He leans into the bird and gets confirmation the target's right there, while Cassandra just grins, practically vibrating with, "I can't wait to start." When a giant troll slams into their path, it becomes the ultimate trial for C-rankers tougher than any orc, by far. But that's not even the worst of it. Those insane healing powers let them bounce back like nothing happened, and fighting them feels like a nightmare. Any strike that's not the finisher instantly seals up and resets them on the spot, so if you're only throwing weak attacks, you'll never bring them down. Shin flashes back to his time with the Golden Fleece, because they could only bring down a troll with one monstrous fatal strike, and even then, Medea had to burn her strongest magic just to. Barely scraped by then, he stares down at the monsters in the woods and realizes his new party's got nothing to fall back on. No crazy high-level spells at all. So their only real shot is Cassandra going berserk with that sword watching from the ledge. He swallows his breath, trying. He's trying to figure out how to buy her enough time to kill one for real. And when he asks how long she needs, she shrugs and says, 5 seconds. And that answer leaves him completely. He just stood there, mind reeling, because he couldn't even process that level of speed yet. But Cassandra is already moving on to the plan. She tells him she'll knock out 2 of them right away and save the last one for him. And Shin starts thinking this might actually work until it slams into him. Then his confidence wobbles, and he blurts out if she's seriously saying he should take one all on his own. Cassandra locks eyes with him, smiles like she's sure of it, and tells him he'll be just fine. Right before she makes her move, she leans in and tells him, straight from the heart, that she truly believes he can do this. She screams she'll catch him later, becomes a total blur, rockets through the trees, and slams hard into the ground right in front of the trolls. Sheen hears her words and goes, "If you're that sure, then I might as well swing for it." Cassandra swings her sword before the troll even realizes she's there, and its head flies off like it never stood a chance. She doesn't pause for air, thrusting her hand forward as she screams for the flames to rip into the next target. She rips through its legs mid-dash, skids across the dirt, and screams Shin's name to warn him now it's time. That second troll is totally blinded by the fire magic she set loose, and it hands Shin the perfect opening. He plants himself right in front of the last giant and roars at the top of his lungs that his opponent is right here. The monster rips out a furious growl, pouring all its rage into the tiny humans blocking its path, and Shin doesn't blink. He just glares it down, clenches his teeth, and dares the beast to try. The troll snaps, rage takes over and swings its monstrous club for a deadly blow, but Shin reminds himself of one thing: his partner truly believes in him, so he grabs his focus and goes all in to make it work. Shin darts under the monster's legs to hunt for an opening, and Cassandra screams that this is finally the moment they've been waiting to hit. Shin thinks it's finished, then Cassandra screams that it's still alive, and he barely has a split second before a massive fist whips past his head. She spots the beast finally losing steam, and snaps at Shin to keep hammering the attack. Shin roars, "I've got this," then charges straight back into the brawl with the last of his strength. He smashes him with a crushing blow, and the troll howls in agony while fresh smoke billows from the new wound. And just when the monster lunges for him one final time, Shin screams, "Not this way!" His sword ignites, blazing with raw energy. With a thunderous roar, he hammers the blade straight into the troll's chest so clean the creature doesn't even get a scream out. Shin slams his hands on his knees, breathing hard, staring as the smoke curls up from the huge body until it finally goes still. He slumps against his sword, stunned he really won, while Cassandra comes sprinting over with her arms up, cheering like it's the best day of her life. She grins at him and declares he's finally ready for the real world, laughing like, "Seriously, you're way better than I ever thought you'd be." Shin bursts out laughing, admits he's honestly shocked by how far he's come, and tells Cassandra the only reason he's grown is because she's been the best teacher. The two of them smack fists together hard, celebrating the win like they just owned the moment. They kick it into gear toward the city and head straight for the towering giants of the Adventurers Guild. Right back at the counter, Yumi flashes a huge grin and tells them the appraisal for that troll's magic stone is finally done. She officially congratulates Shin for landing B rank, and even though Angelina's stuck in a meeting, she swears she's going to be bursting with joy. Chen says he's really hoping it's true, because he feels like he's been stuck in her debt for way too long. Yumi bursts out laughing and tells him he's being way too humble, and then she leans in and drops the real bombshell she's been picked to coordinate a massive new project that's about to kick off. They said the whole project hinged on one thing, the exact intel they ripped from that adventurer while he was on the job. Shen opens his mouth to talk, but Cassandra slams right over him, laughing that if he's beer ink, then the guild must have been scraping the bottom for members lately. Shin slams on the brakes when he spots a familiar face. There's Jason standing right in front of him, with Medea and Jason. Jason greets Medea, then swivels his smug grin towards Shin, laughing like, "I figured you'd be crawling back to the order with tears in your eyes." But Shin shows up with a girl instead, so Jason needles him, saying it's a pretty smooth play. Cassandra snaps, calling him a rude bastard, then fires off at Shin. "Do you actually know this guy?" Shin nods and hits back. Jason's the leader of his old crew, the Golden Fleece. Jason doesn't hesitate for a second. He belts out that he's the one and only great hero, but Cassandra isn't buying it. She snaps that he's a joke of a hero, and anyone who can't see Shun's real worth is nothing but a complete idiot. Jason snaps completely, erupts into screaming, and demands to know what she just said. Then he draws the line with a threat to kill her on the spot, while Medea scrambles to physically hold him back. He keeps roaring that he'd never lose to some woman, but Cassandra just keeps on walking, cutting him down with the guild rule that beer ink wars aren't allowed to start private fights. Out of nowhere, Jason slams the brakes, points at her flaming red hair, and bam, realizes she's Cassandra the Calamity, the legendary beer ink solo adventurer. And he looks absolutely furious as he spits out that taking on a comrade killer is going to be a brutal pain in the neck. That comment lands like a punch straight in the gut. Cassandra's shaken to the core, and she whispers under her breath that she didn't do any of it. Medea snaps her head up at Jason, stunned by what he just blurted, while Jason screams at Shin to explain himself, only for Shin to stand his ground and hit Jason with the truth he needs to apologize to Cassandra. Shin shrugs and says he doesn't care that Jason's mocking him, leaving Medea totally baffled. Then he snaps, starts yelling that nobody gets to insult his partner, and demands an apology right now. Jason yells that everyone calls Shin a loser and admits it's the truth. Then Shin storms right up in his face and blasts back, "You're 100 wrong." Shin keeps charging forward, bellowing at the top of his lungs that the fact he's still alive and standing right here is all the proof Jason will ever need that he's wrong. Jason clicks his tongue and mutters that she finally got it. Then Medea jumps in, shuts the bickering down, and urges them to settle everything with a mock battle. Shun doesn't even flinch. He promises he'll take them on. Then Cassandra snaps, demanding he stop right there and wait. Cassandra snaps that she'll take care of it, and when Shin locks eyes with her, he suddenly gets it. Yeah, she's got a scary reputation, but her sword skills are pure mastery. She tells him, "That's exactly why I have to step up, because this whole disaster is now a fight for both our reputations." Jason bursts into laughter, roasting them for mocking Shin, then jokes that the guy's probably living it up like he's got the good life. Cassandra jabs a finger at Jason and snaps, "Keep barking while you can," because she's stepping in to take Shin's place in this mock battle. Cassandra plants her hand on Shin's chest to stop him cold, and the second he locks onto her plan, it finally clicks. Jason erupts into shouting at the crowd, swearing he's worth way more than Cassandra could ever ask, then fires back, "Are you ready to see me go to work?" Cassandra glances at him like the noise doesn't even exist, and asks straight up if he's really ready to kick this off. The crowd explodes in cheers for Jason, screams that the outsiders should go straight to hell, and while all of that chaos kicks off, Yumi stands off to the side with dread coiling in her gut, praying she's wrong about how this will turn out. In the stands, their turning feral one guy keeps yelling at Jason to break the red-haired girl's nose for his sake. Jason shoots Cassandra a creepy grin, then starts wiggling his finger like he's sure of himself, claiming he already knows exactly what her special gift is. He swings his sword up over his shoulder, struts like he owns the place, and tells her, all smooth and gentlemanly, that she can take the first strike at him. Cassandra doesn't hesitate for a second. She snaps back that she'll take the offer gladly, then instantly ignites her flambered flame leg skill. She rockets forward in a blur, fire streaking in her wake, and before Jason can even blink, his smug grin snaps into raw, unstoppable terror. She slams down a brutal hit, and a shockwave rips through the arena while Cassandra just stands there, perfectly calm, letting the sheer force of that strike do all the talking. Jason lies face down on the wrecked arena floor, stone cold and out like a light, while Yumi shrieks his name and the crowd can only gape in stunned silence. Smoke still screams out of the hole in the wall where Jason slammed down, but Cassandra just stands there like nothing happened. Meanwhile, Shin is leaping around, absolutely ecstatic. The whole crowd is losing its mind. Some are screaming that Cassandra is insanely strong, while others still can't process what they're seeing, yet she just flashes a smile and owns the win. Angelina storms into the area in full panic, demanding to know why everything's in chaos and why the noise is so damn loud. She slams to a halt the second she sees the wreckage, then she whips around and freezes, totally shocked when Shin realizes she's here, right at that exact moment. Yumi basically clings to Angelina and sobs like her heart is breaking, and while Angelina ignores the whole meltdown for a second, she grabs Shin's attention and tells him he needs to explain himself. She claims she understands the fight, but then she drops the real bomb. There's something bigger she needs to talk about, so she grabs Shin and tells him to follow her. Angelina herds them away from the arena, snapping, "This way," while Shin trails behind with his nerves on full blast. They wind up in a hushed little library corner, and Angelina steers them to a seat, then locks eyes with both of them and demands they stay calm for what comes next. She says another squad of adventurers hit that same cave, and then, boom! She reveals that everybody got wiped out except for one guy. The few survivors who crawled out of that cave are hanging by a thread. One guy just lies there, wrapped in bandages, looking totally wrecked after a pig demon tore him up. Right before he collapsed in the clinic, he still managed to slip out a message, and now, with what Shin told them, the guild is finally stitching every piece of the puzzle together. When Shen hears the guild is about to kick off an official emergency mission, his stress spikes instantly because this time things are about to go full real. Cassandra says they're doing one final check before the order ships, and Angelina grabs Shin and demands he tell her every single detail of what happened in that cave. Shen glances at Cassandra, nods, and promises to spill everything he saw because he finally knows just how terrifyingly high the stakes have become. An emergency mission hits completely different from the usual side jobs adventurers grab off the board because this one comes with a direct order. Most folks pick their own quests, but when trouble hits, the guild plucks specific adventurers out of the crowd, and high rankers can't refuse. Shin finally clocks it. The town isn't just struggling, it's in full-blown crisis, and that's why they're resorting to forced missions like this, because the tension in the air feels suffocating. Once he's done laying out the entire situation on the map, Angelina shoots him a grateful look and thanks him for digging into every last detail. With a sharp, serious glare, she points out that after the guy they just ran into, there's a far bigger problem looming over them. Angelina says, "Act like there are enemies with special gifts, because if they can buff their whole group, they'll get even stronger, and that's exactly why you can't afford to underestimate them." Deadlier than usual, she looks genuinely shaken as it clicks, then blurts out, "Wait, are you talking about an orc king?" Cassandra leans in and asks Shin if he's ever heard of it. Then Shin nods and says he remembers reading about the creature in dusty old guild records. Decades ago, an orc king once led his army out of a cave toward the city, and even with so few, they still went for broke. They wrecked everything, so the guild threw every A-rank fighter they had at them, and even then they still ended up losing 2 towns and a ton of lives. Cassandra leans in and tells him straight up, if A-rank had to scramble back then, it means history is probably gearing up to slam back into place right now. Angelina doesn't think this new orc king hits as hard as the old one, but make no mistake, it's still a massive threat, and they've got to smash it before it crushes them. Before the enemy forces swell, Shin doesn't even flinch. He barrels right up to Angelina and tells her, straight up, that he and his crew are here to help. He thinks it's a brilliant play, and Cassandra shoots back. Yep, this is exactly the perfect first mission for us, now that they're B ranks. Angelina lets out a huge sigh of relief, thanks them for stepping up, and tells them to go over the plan before the news hits the public. A few days slip by, and after that talk about the Orc King, everything starts to look like it's finally easing back into place. Back at the guild, Shin and Cassandra stride into the main hall, and the second they do, people start pointing, whispering, and talking like they've just seen something they can't explain. Cassandra claims she just took down Jason, laughs that she's been getting a ton of attention, then smirks and fixes him. No, it's both of us before she asks, so are we moving or what? Angelina is right there, waiting like a sunshine signal, smiling wide, greeting them warmly for a fresh morning right as she gets. She drops into action, tells them the guild officially ordered an emergency mission, and she doesn't even pause before saying they're in. Because in his eyes, this place is basically a second home. Cassandra backs him up too, saying she has no real reason to refuse, especially with everything that's coming. A special bounty is out for wiping out monsters with gifts, and she's already geared up and admitting she can't wait to sink her teeth into a real fight when. Then someone yells from the back of the room, and suddenly everyone in Shin's group is side-eyeing like, are we really about to hit the front lines? Before a booming voice cuts in, asking if they've forgotten someone in. Then it hits. Jason bursts in, screaming that his party is obviously jumping on the mission too, and he points straight at Shin and Cassandra, yelling that real adventurers only count when they stick together. Right beside his other members, Theseus and Atalante stand there too, 2 C-class solo monsters now locked into his crew. Cassandra doesn't hesitate. She calls Jason a loser for making a scene, then shoots Shin a smug look and asks if he can translate all that noise for her, which Jason snaps completely, screaming that they'll regret their words later. Then he yells at his new team to follow him straight to the strategy meeting, determined. He snatched every reward for himself then. As they pushed toward the conference room, a voice he knew cut through the aircaster, the C-ranked Guardian Knight. Waving him down alongside her partner Pollux, she greets them both with a warm smile, says it's been way too long, and congratulates them for finally making it to C-rank caster. Smiling, he blurts that the promotion is exactly why the guild dragged them into this emergency. Then Shin's face crumples, tears spring up, and he starts acting like a proud dad and praising how much they've grown while Pollux grumbles up a storm, saying he doesn't need that sentimental cutesy stuff, not even a little bit. Trying to teach him something new, then boom, he shuts it down fast, and once everything settles, little Caster leans in with sparkling eyes, absolutely itching to hear how she once went toe-to-toe with a gift-holder monster Cassandra. She clocks the girl's wild intensity and blurts, "Are you even okay?" But Sheen only laughs and says she's way tougher than she looks, and he'd gotten used to her over the years. But the second he actually answers, his expression turns stone cold, telling them straight up that the fight nearly crushed him, and that if they ever spot that kind of aura again, they'd better sprint for their lives. Shen tries to brush it off and claims she's just weak, but Pollux whips around with a death stare, spits out "brother," and the way he says. That's what makes him yelp in pure terror, and as Cassandra watches the two of them together, she can't shake the feeling that their relationship is downright bizarre. She picks up her vibe right away and shoots back a quick explanation. Sure, it looks like chaos, but the truth is, the two of them click perfectly. Cassandra's still not fully sold, though. Shin won't stop. He insists Pollux is pure high-voltage energy, while Castor's the careful, thoughtful one with a razor-sharp tongue, and then he trails off like he's about to drop the real point. Cassandra finally looks away, and you can tell, yeah, she's a little jealous, because the bond they share is something no one can ever explain, and it just keeps breaking her words off mid-sentence. She flashes a warm smile and tells them to stop overthinking it, just build their own bond, so they decide to. Shin barged into the meeting and laid out the entire plan, screaming that the scouts are already in place while the advance team would smash forward and drive the main force straight toward the cave. Even though he admits he's still terrified about Lime, he leans in and tells Cassandra he's going to push for the advance team because he needs a... Cassandra shoots him a fist bump and swears they're taking this down for real, and Shin can't help but agree, loud and clear. 3 more than the plan locks in, and those heavy supply carriages rumble out toward the mountain. Cassandra clocked how smoothly he's clicking with the twins, and she couldn't help but notice somehow. He looks like he knows just about everybody. Shin lays it all out, and you can tell it goes straight back to his days as a brand new guild instructor. Cassandra's eyes light up, and she's genuinely blown away. Because he deals with way more than a normal adventurer, he even tells her he talks to monsters sometimes, because trust is everything. But once it backfired hard, some other guy stared at him like a monster and launched an attack. Still, that legendary reputation landed him a sweet deal, an all-new mithril sword from the local blacksmith right as the story was about to take off. Cassandra acts like he's pure gold, calling him incredible, but Chen doesn't even hype him up, saying he's only here because he's a senior. Pushed him through training. When she asks if that person was an adventurer too, she can't help but blush a little. Cassandra keeps it quiet and doesn't press him. She just promises she'll be the kind of partner he can finally stand behind with pride. The two of them finally barreled into the main guild encampment, this massive setup right by the mountain. Pollock clocks them right away and blurts, "Ready to head in," while Castor just stands there, scowling like everything is getting on his nerves. Shen grabs the twins and shouts last-minute advice, "Stay sharp, don't rush, and if real resistance hits, don't play hero, just run." Castor snaps back at Shin, barking that his only job is to get back alive with the intel. Then Shin tries to say he doesn't need the lecture, but Castor cuts him off before he can finish. Pollock strides in beaming, flashes a polite grin, and tells Shin to step aside for a moment, then immediately whips around to grab her brother and get him moving. Shin cracks a thanks, and Pollock shoots back that he should take care of himself while Castor just slumps there, looking utterly wiped out after that whole exchange. But then Pollock's courage wobbles. She asks Shin, once she's back safely, if she can request a favor, and Shin just shrugs like, "Go ahead, as long as it's something I can actually pull off." She lights up, beams at him, and thanks him while in the background Castor goes off the rails, yelling at her about the story she's trying to spin. Then the two of them bolt straight for the mountain, and Shin just watches worried out of his mind that they might not make it on their own. Cassandra cuts in, saying the twins aren't just C rankers at all, they're a whole tier above thanks to their rare skills and how perfectly they move as a team, and Shin can't help but sound curious. He peppers the conversation with questions about those rare skills, then shrugs and tells her to go ask them herself later, and just like that, he decides it's time to split and deal with their own business. Shin pauses for a beat, just breathing hard before they dive back in. Shinpoki storms into Lime, Jab sticking him with a stick and demanding, "Anything changed lately?" And Lime immediately starts ranting that things have gone off the rails. Groups of people keep showing up in huge crowds, and the pig devils are already digging holes all over the place. Lime curls up against Cassandra, looking absolutely wrecked, panicking that everyone's about to invade its home, so even its usually flawless skin is starting to erupt in breakouts. Shen tries to cool it off fast, telling everyone that the guild's getting ready for a huge hunt, so the slimes lurking in the shadows should be perfectly fine. But something about the tale keeps nagging. Shin pig demons don't normally go around digging holes, and he's never once heard of them being sharp enough to pull off habits like that. Cassandra's completely frazzled and overwhelmed. While Lime is frantically trying to pull Shin's attention, this tiny slime insists it's got something huge to tell him, but Shin just keeps staring at Cassandra in stunned disbelief. Meanwhile, Pollux is out in the field with her brother, pointing straight at the mountain, and she's like, "Honestly, I think I'm pretty lucky." After goblins tore her village apart and shoved her into the life of an adventurer, she thought everything was ruined, yet somehow it all turned out for the best. Castor locks in on the battle, carving through an orc as memories hit him hard. He knows he and his sister were born with real talent, so money was never something they had to stress about. But Pollux unleashes a surge of wind magic, snapping herself back from a brutal memory when life felt totally meaningless, until it was Shin who finally gave her a reason to keep going. Thinking back to the day Shin showed her how to swing a sword, he didn't baby her like some kid mourning her lost hometown. He treated her like a real adventurer, and that one shift changed everything. Pollux can't stop thinking about how Haoshin's words are still keeping her alive, even now while Castor spots the bleeding, snaps into action, and tells her she's hurt. She's praying she can finally be useful to Shin on this hunt, so she rushes to thank her brother for always having her back. Castor flashes a confident smile and tells her he gets exactly how she feels. Then he starts to warn her about what'll happen once they actually make it back, reminding her she's right in enemy territory and can't afford a single mistake then. As Pollux starts to finally come around, she gets cut off by a thunderous noise suddenly crashes through the area, and both of them jerk their heads up, totally blindsided. Then the moment stops mid-sentence as they freeze. And then boom, an enormous horde of furious boar demons bursts out of the cave shadows and charges straight at them. Monsters swarm in numbers so wild it feels impossible to breathe, and for one brutal second, the two of them just stand there absolutely stunned, like their bodies forgot how to move. Pollux snaps her fingers and summons the wind to help her. Then Castor catches the threat and screams for his sister to get back, right now. Meanwhile, Shin's pulling his hair out, too many people crowd the way, and his bats can't lock onto anything while Cassandra frets, wondering if they should have left the guild staff fuming behind. Shintelser knew they couldn't just gamble with 2 lives like that, especially when he was still stuck in his head, replaying those weird boar demons Lime had mentioned. Shin surges forward, pounding the point into Cassandra's head that she's the one who spotted the danger. Then he snaps. "What's the point of a team if we don't move right now?" So, Cassandra thanks him, and her face melts into something gentler as she urges, "Once everyone's safe, let's apologize to the guild staff together." And they spot a tiny demon lurking nearby Shintelser. They've got to catch that little guy alive, not just wipe it out. Cassandra agrees without hesitation, then speeds up to slam the gap between them. But when they corner it, she's totally thrown this thing's acting nothing like it should. She shrugs off the weirdness and fires back, demanding to know where the people who were fighting actually went. He presses his blade to the creature's throat and demands an answer, and the goblins instantly break into sweat and vile, frantic noises like they've completely lost their minds. Shin hears a real fight roaring from deeper in, and it hits him those battle rumors weren't lies after all. That tiny goblin bolts the second it gets the opening, scrambling for its life and vanishing into the cave's pitch-black darkness. Cassandra doesn't blink. She snaps to Shin and tells him it's time to go, standing over a bloody wreck, and Shin can't even process how fast she moved. But right after that, Castor gets cornered deep in Castor, slamming his shield up to survive as 2 ugly pig demons charge him like a runaway storm. Pollux barrels straight into the monster chaos, screaming at the top of her lungs. The 2 siblings get boxed in from every angle, and Castor snaps, asking how many more of these guys they're supposed to smash, while Pollux grits out that the waves just won't quit. Castor's already gasping, but he leans in and tells Pollux he's about to carve out an opening so she can slip away. Pollux isn't letting him get away with that stupid snapback, he's shutting it down fast. But before they can even start arguing, a monster lunges straight into Castor's face. He opens his mouth to speak, but Pollux shrieks for her brother as the moment freezes. Barely gets his shield up before it's too late. His gut drops as he realizes he's trapped, and that if this brawl keeps tearing on like this, One wrong hit is all it takes either way. Neither of them is walking out alive. The orc slams down with a brutal swing, and Castor braces for impact, already convinced he has to somehow pull his sister out of the fire. A shadowy blur streaks by out of nowhere, slashes straight through the monsters, then Castor just stands there, utterly stunned. Shin strides ahead with his blade up, checks on them fast, then snaps that the rest of the fight is his, so they need to get out of here. Shin dug in his heels, roared at the monsters, and demanded they back off right now or get wiped out. The orcs don't even blink, they just yank their weapons up, snarl they'll slaughter the humans, and that's what makes. It hits Shin hard, talking won't cut it, so he starts wondering, do they even understand a word he's saying, or are they just moving like puppets under someone else's will? He stares at his blade, realizing this mithril is unreal, then his eyes spark with a smarter plan, and he's like, wait. He drops to his knees and promises Pollux he's borrowing her staff for a moment. She just says, okay, then snaps into position to try something brand new. He orders Lime to deal with 2 of the monsters while he grabs the lid, and Lime jumps at the chance while Shen just glares at the horde like he's about to crush them, right as. He whips the staff around and blasts a wind blade so razor sharp it cuts an orc clean in half like it's nothing. He refuses to slow down, yelling straight to the wind as he whips that wild energy all around him. He tears through every monster in the area while the siblings watch, hiding just behind him. He stares at the staff, and a dangerous thought hits this kind of power might finally let him stand toe-to-toe with a gift holder. Shin freezes on the spot, eyes bulging, as the truth finally clicks. Cassandra isn't who he thought she was. Cassandra storms up and snaps that she never even got the chance to help him, then waves it off like, if those things can only do this, it's whatever. But he admits Orc's movements felt wildly wrong, and Cassandra nods, saying her special gift didn't catch a single thing from it, making that impossibility. He knew something way worse was brewing, and this whole mess screamed disaster. He just couldn't ignore that gut punch feeling. He rushes over to check on Pollux, and the moment she opens her eyes, she looks utterly spent, then asks Shin if she's really awake or just dreaming. Shin leans in, swears it's the real deal, and shoves a drink into her hands. Now gulp it down. She takes a sip, grimaces instantly, and snaps. That nasty taste is proof I'm wide awake. Hearing her grumble a little hits different, because it means she's finally okay. Suddenly, she snaps, grabs him in a panic, and blurts out, "Did something happen to my brother while I was gone?" But her brother Castor is doing just fine standing right there, completely starstruck by Cassandra, practically calling her a red-haired angel. Sheen tells them they barely made it in time because the two of them refuse to back down. Pollux drops into a deep bow, thanking them for everything, while her brother can only stand there, cheeks blazing with a blushing mess. Cassandra blurts out that she's just relieved they made it in time to save them. Shen fires back that they crushed it by pushing through, and Pollux stares up at them like they're heroes full of real respect. Sheen snaps that they've got to turn around immediately and blast every detail back to HQ, and Pollux explodes with confidence. No way they're falling for the same trap next time. She yanks her brother toward the exit, begging him to go, but he's still stuck in full-on starstruck mode. He keeps staring back at Cassandra like she's a real-life angel. As soon as they disappear, Shin leans in and pushes them to scout the area around them. Then Cassandra snaps, calling out for Yuya, and just like that, right. Then Lime the Slime starts trembling like crazy, blurting out that Shin has to see something nearby like, right now. Shen trails after him right to a tiny gap in the rock wall. He leans in for a closer look, and when he finally understands what he's seeing, his face just crumples. He doesn't waste a heartbeat. He barrels straight into the cave's back, charging toward the figure crumpled on the ground. Chen Yel storms out looking for Swain, only to find an orc warrior slumped there, soaked in blood with deep cuts all over him. Cassandra points out the guy they found, and Shin's eyes flare wide when it clicks it's the same gift-bearer she met back then, the orc warrior, Swain. Lime the Slime tilted his head up at the big guy, asking if he could use his powers to seal up the wounds. Shin snaps that he can't fix everything in one go, then Cassandra loses it, because they're supposed to be hunting those pig demons right now. Lime tells him the orc wasn't just attacked, he was swarmed by the whole crew, just like what happened to him before. Shin decides to step in, tells Cassandra to get ready, and warns her that if she even thinks about causing trouble while he's working. She couldn't believe her own ears. She snapped at him, shouting that the creature was their literal enemy. Shin tells them straight up because the wounds came from her own kind. Lime felt like she had no choice but to step in. He's convinced that Tiny Slime just felt sorry for him because it's the same kind of mess he's been trapped in. He leans in and says, "If we save her, we might finally snag some real intel about what's actually going on." Cassandra lets out a heavy sigh and admits she's got no real choice, then figures, maybe, just maybe, they can actually talk this through with her. Shen thanks Cassandra for stopping by, and she laughs, saying she'd think anyone else was totally out of their mind for pushing this, but now that they're partners, she'll trust Shen's judgment, and that's when things go sideways for. He rubbed his face and burst out laughing, basically admitting that hearing her say it was downright embarrassing. He snaps his focus into place and tells everyone, "All right, it's go time now we work, so shh." So Shin locks onto the orc and unleashes his power, straight up patching the guy's wounds and bringing him back from the brink. The light slams into Schwain's chest and erupts into a wild, blazing glow like it's about to explode. Cassandra freezes in pure shock, blurting that he's healing at lightning speed, and then admitting her own magic can't do anything remotely like that. She keeps staring, blurting that she's never seen anything like this before, then can't help but wonder if it's just another twist of Shin's gift. The orc starts groaning, then slowly cracks his eyes open, looking completely out of it as he stares ahead. He shoots his gaze up at the two of them, both just standing there, staring like they're trying to piece together who they even are yet. But the second Lime shows up, he's bouncing around and straight up tells Schwain, "These guys, they're not bad at all." Schwain tells Lime he has zero clue what the slime's even going on about, then snaps his eyes to Chin and asks if he's the same guy who saved his life before. He whips around to the slime and blurts out a quick thanks, calling him little guy, which ends with Schwain finally admitting he knew Shin would show up sooner or later, because this is the second time the guy's had to save his own skin, like he's dodging disaster again. Shun just flashes a small smile and says, "I swear, I never thought we'd end up crossing paths like this again." And then the orc warrior spirit hits him like lightning. He jabs a finger at Cassandra and barks whether she's with Shin, then demands they start their rematch right now. Schwain jerks himself back, refusing to fight to the death when he still owes a debt, so he tells Shin, "Ask for anything you want as repayment." He keeps pushing, saying once the debt's paid, Shin has to honor his promise, commit to a real fight, so Shin can't stop wondering why this guy is so crazily obsessed with fighting Cassandra. Cassandra presses for answers, and Shin tells her the orc just wants to end their final battle, but he's not exactly ready to force it right now. She shoots Shin a glare and asks if he can really pry useful info out of that guy, and Shin nods like, "I'm gonna give it everything I've got." Shin slides into his seat, cuts straight to the chase, and demands right to Schwain's face why those other orcs were gunning for him in the first place. Schwain pauses for a second, then wrestles with the best way to explain it all his way. Their leader finally learned the truth that he'd slaughtered his own people, and still, he let Shin's group slip away, but now everyone's hunting them, because they didn't back the surface invasion, and that sealed their fate for a full purge. Shin hangs his head with guilt and blurts out an apology for dragging that orc into such a huge disaster, but Schwain shuts him down and tells him to drop it. He made his own call, and that's none of Nachin's business. He actually looks genuinely thrilled, because he's bragging that this time he finally got to wipe out the strongest of his own kind. Shen asks if Schwain's really not harboring a grudge after his own friends turned on him, and Schwain says those non-stop attacks didn't break him, they leveled him up and pushed him to get stronger. He basically shuts down the urge to stay bitter over the betrayal like, "Stand back," because he's got something to say. He's getting tall and straight up admits he's only doing what he wants, trying to find strong guys to fight, but then he catches himself and snaps back that it's not the whole truth. The orc grins and blurts that all he truly wants is a brutal good fight. Then he steps in and offers to team up with Shin's crew to take down the big boss. Then he blurts out that he can't stand how Haoshin's brother handles things, leaving Shin completely baffled. Like, What brother is he even talking about? Sheen gets totally rattled and blurts out, "Wait, are you really his brother?" And she can't forget Schwain hinting at some special power, but then the orc bursts into laughter, jabs a finger at him, and cheers that he's just as smart as his brother. Schwain steps right into his space and snaps that when you stare close enough, you can even see it. He's got the same twisted look too, and it hits Shin hard like a punch, because turns out his brother has the same power. Once he's beaten someone, he can issue absolute orders and they have to obey. Even though he's the weakest physically in the tribe, his brains carry the weight, and that's exactly how he ended up leading everyone. Schwain points out the brother even bragged that he let someone slip on purpose to draw the humans in, and the orc admits, yeah, he never really understood the invasion plan himself. Shen's eyes blow wide as he demands Schwain repeat it because the truth hits harder than he ever expected. Panic crashes over him. Did the whole group just march straight into an orc trap? The guild has no clue they're up against such a sharp leader. Cassandra realizes right then that this whole assault mission is about to crash hard and fast. Shenny keeps it real and tells Shuane, "We're fighting your brother and yeah, we might have to kill him on the spot." Then he turns to ask if the orc is truly okay with that. Schwain looks ice cold as he says he has no reason left to guard his brother's secrets, basically throwing Shin the green light to do whatever he wants. Do what he has to, because for orcs, power is the only truth that counts. Shin just nods, like he gets exactly what that deal means. Sheen rockets forward, shouting to Cassandra, yelling that they've got to move right now because everyone's in serious trouble. They launch into a sprint, and Cassandra fires off. "Did you actually get anything useful?" Shin snaps that the leader is the absolute worst kind of person. Then he cuts in. "We'll have to talk while we run, because time is slipping away fast while that's happening. Jason and the Golden Fleece Knights are already tearing deeper into the caves in another part, pushing inside after. They've taken the guild's job, and now they're charging straight for the place they're sure the main orc force is lurking." Jason is snapping and yelling about how much time this is taking, panicked to the bone because if they keep stalling, someone else is absolutely going to beat them there first. Atalante snaps at him to calm down because they can't just charge in blindly while they don't even know where the attack is coming from still. You can tell she's just as furious. Jason jerks his finger at the ceiling and tells her to just ask a bat for directions. Then he starts jawing, calling her out like, "Are you even a real hunter if you can't use animals?" She fires back, saying she can't just start chatting with random bats. Sure, if it were a pet she'd had since she was a kid, that'd be different, but this is just straight up ridiculous. Jason starts to panic. If only Shin were still here, they wouldn't be stuck in this Medea-level disaster, so she grabs him and snaps, "Stay cool." But Jason can't shake the fact that it was his idea to kick Chin out in the first place. Medea reminds him that he was the one who called the guy useless. So Jason snaps at her, demanding if she's really trying to pin everything on him. Then he blames Shin, saying if Shin had been more reliable, they never would have had to banish him. He's getting all worked up, spiraling over the fact that his crew is supposed to be the top of B rank, and then he snaps at the girls, telling them they've got to prove themselves right here so they can finally claw their way up to A rank. Jason declares he won't lose to a single soul, especially not Shin, because even if they're behind on information right now, he's sure they've got the muscle to overpower everyone, and he fully believes he's the ultimate hero in the whole damn story. And then comes Atalanta, the lightning-fast hunter. Sure, she might only be C rank, but she's still a massive part of the team, right? With Medea, their powerhouse mage, she's packing straight-up serious magic. Rounding out the crew is Theseus the Beast Killer Paladin, who just clawed her way up to B rank. Jason grins and tells them they've got 4 brutal heavy hitters with real combat gifts, while he knows Shin's teaming up with that demon woman, Cassandra, now, and still pretends it's no big deal. Theseus is riding pure confidence, and she's flat out telling everyone, "There's no way I lose if we charge straight in and fight head-on." Jason bursts into the huge, battered fortress under siege, and just as he demands to know what's going on, an archer locks onto him and shouts, "Jason!" Medea calls out that they're getting crushed trying to crack the stronghold, and the archer chimes in, "Sure." A few squads slipped in, but the rest are still trapped. Then boom! A huge orc boss crashes right into the middle of the battle, and someone blurts out, "Wait, is this him?" Jason just grins, drops the line that every hero earns their stripes through a trial by fire, then admits he thought they'd missed the whole party, but now he's sure fate has his back. He rallies his team, yelling that they're going to tear this monster down and toast a brand new beginning for the Golden Fleece. Jason roars for everyone to listen, then snaps at the other fighters to back off and hand the rest of the battlefield to his crew. Meanwhile, Shin, Cassandra, and Swain barrel toward the chaos, and Shin blurts out that the current chieftain didn't just get replaced, he was swapped out for the orc's brother. Cassandra leans in and tells Swain he's way too thin for an orc, which usually screams, "the brains of the group." And then Shen cuts in asking what his brother was really like. Swain stares back and admits the truth: his brother's body crumbled in the first place, because the rest of the tribe never treated him right. Schwan keeps going, telling you how one day while he was gone, his brother got dragged into a new hunting party with a different crew of orcs, and then, right there, the story cuts too. And he's still scratching his head about what went down in those woods, because he can't quite piece it together. Then boom, those orcs who'd followed his brother turned obedient to his commands, and before long he was ordering their hunts himself, so... Ocean asks if that's when the brother's special gift finally snapped awake, and Lime's sure it's exactly that. Swain says, "My brother used to be a good dude, then the more followers he grabbed, the more violent he turned, his ego ballooning until... And it turns out his power doesn't just defeat people, it forces anyone he beats to obey every single command he throws at them. It didn't take long before his power exploded so hard that he even took control of the tribe's old chieftain, but his reign was just starting to get dangerous, because his drive didn't stay stuck on the tribe for long. Soon he was dreaming bigger, talking about ruling the entire surface world. Swain insists he tried to stop him because he knew the world was too big, but Shin smirks and says that's exactly why the two brothers tore into each other, sending it all into a hole. Swain gets exiled, and he snaps at Shin to stop looking so crushed. Then Lime chimes in that this is the whole reason they managed to reconnect in the first place. Swain actually sounds genuinely pumped, saying he's glad he finally gets to go toe-to-toe with the former chief to the death, giving it everything he's got, like somehow it hasn't been all bad for him. And Shin and Lime are grinning as they go, but Cassandra slams the brakes and orders them to wait. She tells them the guild still swears the chief is the toughest orc alive, so even if they smash the forces they're facing right now, it'd be a disaster if those orcs slipped in again while we're not watching Shins with him, and Swain pushes hard that they've got to wipe out the true chief. Meanwhile, that massive orc army is spilling onto the battlefield in a wild, screaming swarm, pure chaos everywhere, and it's total war as... Jason snaps as he's losing his cool, screaming that they should be able to smash through these weak little enemies now that they brought extra people for this mission. Medea rips into screams as arrows streak through the air, and Jason just shouts back that he's already handling it before he... But he's got to bark at Theseus to keep him out of the line of fire, she tries to explain, but it's way easier said than done. While Atalante gets slammed into the chaos, screams as the attacks keep hammering down, and then Jason starts blasting out curses as everything crumbles around him, telling Theseus to just keep healing while she's screaming in the middle of the chaos. Jason is unraveling, he's sweating, spiraling over how painfully slow everyone reads the situation, and at this point it's so bad he can't help thinking Shin would have handled it way better. He whips his sword into the next wave, then snaps he's done with these orcs acting like the battlefield has an infinite supply. Medea shouts at him while she cranks her magic to full power, and Jason just roars back, "Do it!" like he's already braced for whatever spell she's about to unleash. She unleashes a monstrous blast that tears clean through the battlefield, carving out a massive lane through the orcs in one single shot. Jason tells her she crushed it, but he won't let anyone breathe easy. He snaps that the team is charging in right now to slam the opening, so Theseus tries to tell her she's not fully healed yet, but Jason snaps, telling her to get back into the fight the moment she's ready and be ready with backup right away before he cuts off the... Jason blasts ahead toward the entrance of the next area, yelling for everyone to move, and Medea charges in right on his heels. He spots a few of the other guys and shoots them. You breathing. Then he promises he's got their backs. And when he looks up, the soldiers stare like they've just seen a ghost because they're honestly just relieved he finally showed. But that relief doesn't last because right ahead, a hulking orc warrior stands over a pile of bodies, looking like the absolute worst nightmare. Jason snarled at the soldiers to lock down the media's safety, then demanded to know if they were the ones behind the ground shaking, before pressing, "I'm counting on you, stay sharp." Jason squares up to the towering enemy, sweat pouring down as he blurts, "Wait, is that really the boss of this whole place?" And Swain just stands there like a full-blown nightmare, clutching a massive broken sword stained with so much blood, it looks like it's been through hell. Jason tells himself he'll take this guy down no matter what, because he's dead set on finally becoming a hero, and he's not stopping until he makes it happen. So he bursts straight into the chaos, barely dodging a brutal swing, and he scans for the perfect opening to strike back. One of the dudes watching from the sidelines can't even wrap his head around it. He's screaming that it's straight up insane. Jason is charging that massive thing completely on his own. Jason roars to the group that he's making his move, then before anyone can blink, a voice snaps back, "We've got it. We're on it." He slams his blade into the blow and absorbs it barely because the impact nearly crushes his arm. And Jason realizes right then this orc is stronger than he ever dreamed. That weight is crushing him inch by inch, and he knows if he keeps pushing like this, he's going to get swallowed whole. But something about this guy's fighting feels weirdly wrong. Jason can't shake the thought that a meathead like him couldn't possibly be the one steering all these orcs. He wrestles his own thoughts away from Shin, clenches his teeth, then forces himself to stop imagining how everything would play out if Shin were right here. Jason flashes a confident grin, clamps down hard on his weapon, locks eyes with the enemy, and declares no matter what this ends right now. The whole crew surges in as one, dropping from above in perfect sync for a brutal, coordinated strike aiming every last ounce of power right. At Swain, the hit lands with a terrifying thud. Dust and blazing light explode outward, swallowing the whole area in one massive cloud. With smoke crawling through the air, Jason shouts, "Did I finally get you?" But the others right behind him look just as rattled. Jason spots something through the haze, then it vanishes on him. Swain is still right there, clutching the burned body he used to take the hit. Jason recoils in disgust, snapping, "Wait, did that guy seriously throw one of his own henchmen in front of him as a human shield to save himself?" And he rips into the air with raw frustration when he realizes his best shot couldn't even land a scratch, but he can't afford to vent. Not when. A colossal shadow drops over him out of nowhere. Jason barely has time to breathe before a brutal force swings straight at him. Swain lets out a gritty grunt and hauls his broken blade through a massive arc. Its raw power is so wild it slices through everything in one devastating hit. Medea just stands there, trembling like a leaf. Her face drains to bone white as she starts to crack, and pure terror locks her throat shut so the words won't even come. Jason surges forward with everything he's got, roaring for his attack to hit before time runs out while a blade screams through the air, and it lands straight in his chest, blood exploding as he takes that brutal, massive hit. Medea just freezes in place, staring as everything unfolds like a nightmare in slow motion, so shocked she can't even move, leaving. She tore off while screaming Jason's name, and he crumpled to his knees, blood pouring onto the cold ground. Jason sits there shattered and soaked in his own blood, staring at the wreckage like, how did my life come to this? And then, right in the middle of it. But Medea keeps yelling for him as he spirals into a rage fog, stuck on the fact that he was supposed to be a legendary hero until orcs tore him apart. As Jason stares in disbelief, the massive orc Swain looms over them because their entire front line has finally crumbled. With the last of his strength, he shoots his gaze upward and demands Medea get out of there, save herself, no matter what. Swain hefts a massive slab of stone like a death sentence to finish them both, and Jason can only stare shocked at how this nightmare is ending. But Shin rockets in out of nowhere, slams himself in front of the strike, and screams at Jason demanding what the hell he's doing even here. Shin slices straight through the orc blocking his way, never once easing up as he He, Cassandra, and Lime sprint across the battlefield, tearing toward the others before it's too. It's too late. Shin blurts out whether that massive tremor was Medea's magic, and Cassandra snaps that they're right there, then she points them the way, pushing them to hurry. They spot a blinding flash up ahead and can't help but think, that's our way out, so they barrel straight into the light. Shin barely makes it through until he spots Jason slumped on the ground, blood pooling everywhere, and the moment crashes down on him. Medea's right there, gripping him as panic crashes through her, screaming at Jason to wake up, but Shen doesn't get the luxury of waiting. He throws up a desperate prayer, then charges straight for the giant orc, shouting for the monster to bite down on his blade. Swain hauls his enormous stone sword up in time to slam the strike away, and you can see the shock hit his face the moment it works. Shin tells Cassandra and Lime are the ones he's betting on for the backup, and both of them shoot back that they've totally got it under control. While Shin locks in on the big brute, Cassandra and Lime dig in and hold their ground against the rest of the orc army. Swain blurted to Medea that he'd been waiting forever for his chance to scrap with her, and Medea smirked, admitting he was actually a worthy opponent. Shin barrels over to Midra, blurting out if she's still alive, while Medea just freezes in place, stunned out of her mind. Medea spots Lime and demands to know why Shin's even here, but the slime only shrugs and says it's helping because Shin asked it to. Swain snaps and roars that he'll slaughter every human he can see, screaming at Shin to get out of the way before he dies. Then the rest of the orc army surges onto the hillside, swarming in like a living wave, ready to smash right through and take over everything. Shin catches the reinforcements charging in, and frustration flares in his gut. Then he spots something sprawled on the ground. He skates across the ground, snatches the staff, and tells Medea, "Relax, I'm borrowing this to help even the odds." The staff starts ripping his energy away, but Shen clenches his teeth, powers through, and screams at the wind to come running. A colossal tornado slams the battlefield and tears straight through the orc lines, whipping them around like they weigh nothing at all. Cassandra can't even believe the monster-level magic she's swinging around, so she rides the chaos and leaps right in. Shin hauls his wounded ally close, roars at the world that those flames are Cassandra's, and then it hits them, they're finally safe. Jason wastes no time. He's shouting at the media team to back off as the fire keeps roaring. Shin groans as the spell's backfire flares up his mana, and the whole team scrambles because they've got to treat the injured guy right now. Right as Jason barrels in, he demands Medea was she behind those flames, and then he instantly freezes in total shock when he spots Shin standing there. Atalanta and Theseus burst in right when Jason needs them most. Then they waste no time spelling out just how grim everything really looks. Shen tells him Lime's powers finally sealed the bleeding, but the cost is brutal. He's now drained dry of every last bit of magic. As the pressure cranks up, Jason snaps his gaze over and asks Theseus if she's truly ready to face the fight coming right at them. Catching his breath, Jason scans his team and fires off a question. What's the situation out there on the rest of the field? With the rear locked down, the only job left is to push support from the inside and keep everything standing. So Atalanta figures it all boils down to getting back to the two brawling up front, and Shin just can't help but nod along. Shen leans in and snaps at the group that they've got to hunt down the orc commander right now because Medea snaps, asking if she's actually the one calling the shots, right as Jason starts to lay out what's going on, but then Atalanta's stunned wait. There's another gift holder out there. Medea tells her it's a lot to process, and then Jason turns to Shin, pressing him hard. Are you really sure about this? Shin says the info came straight from that orc, thanks to his translator skill, but Jason can't shake the nagging worry that guy might not be trustworthy. Shin declares the way the orcas are fighting is all the proof they need, while Jason stares at the shadowy figure and demands to know if that's the one. Someone snarls that the whole fight's a disgusting mess, as both sides keep colliding in the middle of the field. Swain straight up admits his opponent is insanely strong, and you can hear the respect in his voice as he surges with power, wins up a brutal, crushing strike, and slams it down with everything he's got. Theseus stares at the orc still charging forward and wonders if her last strike was way too shallow, because it didn't slow her down at all, and then Swain's panic spikes, and he can't stop wondering what kind of monster that woman is until it hits him, Things are about to get really, really bad for him. Orc units are completely falling apart, screaming at their archers to loose arrows and take down that human girl and wipe out the traitor with her. Amid all the chaos, Shin sweeps the battlefield with his eyes, locks onto his target at last, and erupts, shouting that he's got him. She snaps to attention and yells for Atalante to get ready, then shoots him a green light and slides right into her position. He jabs a finger straight at the orc clutching the skull staff and asks her, right there, if she can bring him down from their current spot. Atalante doesn't throw out empty promises, she just says she'll try, then drops into total focus as she draws her bow back and sights the target. She looses the arrow, and it screams through the air, slicing straight into the orc commander's chest before he even gets a chance to react. She spots the hit and practically explodes with excitement, firing off, "Did you take him out?" But Atalante is already shaking her head. The orc commander slams face first into the dirt, bleeding hard, stunned to the bone that someone actually had the nerve to take him on head-on. Atalante's face falls with disappointment as she admits she messed up, but she forces a grin and tells her she did great because that guy is absolutely battered. Shun slams the opening and fires up the whole crew, shouting for everyone to rush the commander right now that his cover's been blown. The orc commander is losing his grip on reality, shouting at his soldiers to rush up and shield him before anything can reach him. And the human soldiers start losing it too, screaming that they actually managed to take down a gift holder. How insane is that? And the other orcs just freeze there, drenched in sweat, staring around like they've got no clue while the dust finally clears. Shen spots the commander twitching again and fires off. Why is he suddenly moving? But Cassandra cuts him off mid-sentence. She plunges down from above, screaming that this ends right now, then slams her blade down with a massive strike rips straight through him. She lands it perfectly. Then the commander finally drops for good, and she thrusts her sword to the sky and screams across the whole battlefield that the pig demon lord is dead. The human soldiers snap back with their second wind. The older guys are screaming for the rest of the pigs, and everyone else bursts in to avenge their friends, smashing through the leftover orc forces and hammering them into a panicked scramble to get away. When the dust finally clears, Cassandra shouts Shin's name, and he swings back around, asking her and the others if they can spare a moment to talk. The orc commander isn't dead at all. He's sneaking off into the dark tunnels as he disappears into the shadows, like he's about to vanish any second. He's totally losing it over how everything went south. He thought dropping the mage would be a sure win, but now he can't stop replaying it in his head. She ignored everyone else and came straight for his throat, like she knew exactly what she was doing, and he's convinced she's got wild powers just like his. Even with rage boiling in his veins, he can't stop smiling. He pulled off swapping himself with a decoy while the battle was in chaos. And he starts plotting his comeback like a man on fire. Once he's back in the main lair, he'll regroup, lock in his revenge, and show those humans that his powers are still way more than enough. What really wrecks him is his brother, Swain, calling him a full-on traitor, and he still curses that he didn't just swing first and beat him into submission when he had the chance. He really believed his brother was the only one standing with him, but now he's left staring at the truth. Was all of this just Swain being petty after getting exiled? Rage floods him. How dare his own blood join forces with the enemy, especially after everything he's let that guy walk away with before. He finally bursts through a doorway, thinking he's pulled off the perfect escape, then he exhales, relieved he made it in time. But when he shows up, Cassandra's already there waiting like she knew the whole thing would land this way, claiming it's exactly what she predicted, even as she shrugs it off and calls it mostly just a lucky guess. Shin says it was a genius call to make her scan his face just in case he tried pulling something sneaky. The orc commander starts to panic, staring at these guys like, "How did you even find my hiding spot?" Then it clicks. Shin's the hunter who's been tracking him, and in that moment, he realizes snagging an intelligent orc is way tougher than he ever imagined. When he tilts his gaze upward, Cassandra comes into view, and it hits him. She's the one who stood her ground against the former chief. She looks down and declares, "It's finally over," but the commander can't stop replaying one thing, how he's even supposed to make sense of Shin's words. Shen bluntly tells him there are no more soldiers left to hide behind, and the commander snaps to attention, realizing this sudden luck might be his only lifeline, especially when Shen says they won't let him escape. The commander stares into his own thoughts, remembering how humans can be downright terrifying and somehow still fall for anything. He decides the best play is to become the victim, so he throws himself to the ground and screams for them to spare his life, selling pure desperation. While he's secretly planning to kill them later, he smiles and plays along, hands clasped tight, swearing he never wanted any of this. He keeps bowing at Shin's feet, sobbing that he had no choice but to do what he did. Meanwhile, Shin just stares him down and drops the bomb that the two of them might be a lot more alike than he. Desperate to survive, he had to sink his hands into some brutal stuff just to claw his way up. Shen drops his gaze, demands to know if this is really all about keeping him alive, then fires back, and the commander swear they'll keep him off the surface forever. Spotting the opening, the commander flashes a small, secret grin and lets himself think, this is going to be so easy. The orc commander keeps bowing and groveling, swearing he's finally learned his lesson, while secretly chuckling at how naive humans still are. But Shin just stares him down and tells him, I'm going to say one thing because it's for your own good. The commander's face goes wide with disbelief when she finally reveals that his special ability lets him read people's true intentions. Realizing he's out of tricks, the orc snaps, shouts at Shin not to laugh, and lunges forward for one last brutal strike. But Shin's so lightning fast that he drops him for good before the guy even gets a clean hit in. Cassandra strides over to Shin and praises him. She's sure now the orc really was the chieftain, even after he tried to pull a body double stunt to throw everyone off. As Shin finally catches his breath, he admits the guy was way smarter than he expected, but even so, he wouldn't have lasted much longer. Cassandra spots something in Shin's face and blurts, "What's going on?" And Shin catches himself, thinking, me and that orc aren't so different. We were both just trying to survive with whatever we could get. She locks eyes with him and asks, straight up, if he's seriously thinking something like that, leaving him totally off guard. But then she bursts into laughter at him while he fumbles his explanation, face burning with pure embarrassment. Cassandra steps straight and inchy on his face and snaps him into the truth she's saying that orc isn't him, because that brute only saw his own people as tools to use, even while Shin had enough power to turn her into a pawn. He decided to ask her to be his partner instead, straight up the opposite of that orc, who only ever used his special power for his own selfish gain. So she jabs a finger at him and makes it crystal clear he uses his power to help people, which means the two of them couldn't be more different. Shin just freezes in place for a heartbeat, dead silent, like the whole world is holding its breath and with. That's when Cassandra starts panicking, telling him point blank not to go quiet, because the silence makes everything feel brutally embarrassing. She pretends she's totally fine, whips around and bolts, yelling that everyone else is gone and they've got to hurry to track down the rest of their friends. As they finally wrap everything up, Shin strides over to Swain and tells him, loud and clear, our end is done. The fight is officially over. Swain glances at the dead chieftain for half a second, shrugs it off, and clocks the truth this guy tried a cheap sneak attack, and it got him killed. Shen drops his gaze when he calls Swain's name, but the orc just shrugs like it's nothing because they fought to the death, and his big bro was the one who fell, so that's the whole story. He looks back on his childhood, replaying the day the commander actually shared the tiny bit of meat he had, and how that small bite tasted like heaven. Then he goes on to explain that before the guy ever got that power, he was secretly the kindest person alive. Then Walshin just stands there, completely silent. Swain admits he has no clue how humans handle grieving for the dead, so he tells Shin to take it from here, and Shin just silently nods, thanking him. Swain and him slam fists, and Swain reminds him not to let their promise slip because Shun's sure he'll be back for them. He hesitated for a beat, eyes locked on Cassandra as she turned and started striding away ahead of him. He stays there alone for a moment, staring straight at the fortress gate, massive, shattered, and ruined. Later that night, the story cuts to the Corinth Adventurers Guild lights blazing, voices roaring, and the whole place buzzing with people. Inside the local tavern, the whole room is packed tight with adventurers, loudly stuffing food and washing it down with drinks after that brutal long day. A massive feast sprawls across the tables, and someone shouts for everyone to grab a drink and toast like champions after wiping out the orcs. The moment the victory lands, the whole tavern explodes in noise. Everyone lifts their mugs high, roars cheers like thunder, but right as the noise peaks, someone shouts, "Shin!" and he and Lime whip their heads around to see who's calling. A pack of girls swarms around them, shouting if this is the legendary slime everyone's obsessed with, and practically begging for a chance to pet him before they can't resist anymore. Shin was left speechless as Lime grinned, promised he'd be back in a flash, and acted way too thrilled that someone was finally paying attention. Lime rockets through the air straight for the girls, and the second they see him, the chaos erupts suddenly. They're fighting over him. One girl clutches him tight, whispering about how amazing he feels. Shin just freezes, staring while his companion acts like a full-on pervert. And meanwhile, Lime is quietly losing it inside, smugly thinking girls are way better than guys. For a split second, Shin just halts, staring at the slime like, wait, does it really understand everything people are saying? A voice pops out from the side and roasts Shin for that massive grin on his face as he watches the chaos unfold, and then it hits him. There's Cassandra, already smashing a huge mug of beer like she's been doing it her whole life. She spots Cassandra's face blazing red, blurts out how much she's had to drink, and Cassandra only giggles, then refuses to tell. Then she slams a full mug into his hands and barks that he has to start drinking too, totally catching him off guard as he takes the drink, stunned by what he's seeing because he never thought she'd be into loud, rowdy places like this. But Cassandra snaps her gaze aside and blurts that she tried joining a party like this once before, only it didn't go well at all. No one even dared to step up and talk to her the entire time. She just smirks and says it's probably because she's so gorgeous that everyone else was too scared to even step up, making her lose it and insist there's no way any of it is true, while Shin just calmly takes a sip and hits her with, "Do you really believe that?" He doubles down, tells her her outfit looks amazing on her, and even says she's beautiful. Then she walks out, leaving him staring. Cassandra was left blushing furiously as she told him he was just spitting out whatever sounded good, anything to make her feel better. But after a second, she drops her gaze, cheeks burning, and still tells him thanks for the compliment. Shin and Cassandra are just kicking back with their drinks when, out of nowhere, a whole crew of adventurers shouts for her. One guy barrels right up in her face and tells her, "Your fight with the Orc Lord was unreal." Then he's flat out begging for her to spill the whole story. Cassandra's completely swamped as another guy leans in and asks, wide-eyed, if it's really true she beat the Black Orc and won him over as an ally. Shin clocks these are the Vanguard's frontline fighters, right as they start telling Cassandra that everyone can't stop admiring her strength. The crowd keeps swelling, and this one guy straight up calls her an angel, insisting she's beautiful even while she's falling apart right there. And seeing all these people genuinely show up to talk to her, Shin can't help but feel a wave of emotion hit her. Cassandra can't stand all that spotlight, so panic hits. She blurts that she has to make her rounds, then she bolts straight into the crowd. As soon as she's gone, she spots Angelina nearby, all tense and awkward, while some random guy swoops in trying to flirt with her non-stop. So he bursts out, yelling that he's got a report for her, handing her the perfect excuse to tell the guy she's been called away for work. Angelina exhales in relief, thanking him for saving her, but Shin cuts in and tells her the real truth. She brought it on herself the moment she looked that beautiful. Angelina shoots him a sharp look and says he probably uses that same line on every girl. She keeps pushing, bringing up what he was like after Cassandra and Pollux. Then she straight up labels him a total flirt, and Shin just freezes, completely stunned. She laughs it off, calls it a joke, then slips in that she knows exactly how much work he really put in. She leaned in with a blush and blurted that she was genuinely happy for him, then cut in fast with a quick, shaky thank you before Shin could even react. He tries to stay humble, claiming it's all the guild's support, but Angelina just strolls away humming a cheerful tune like she's already won. Later, she's huddled at a table with Cassandra, and she blurts that Jason hasn't shown up at the hall even once to. Turns out Medea swore the guy was totally fine now, but even so, he still wouldn't show up at the victory party. She lets out a tiny sigh, then shrugs it off like, yeah, that's just how it is. Angelina claps hard to grab everyone's attention, then roars that Shin is officially the MVP of the entire mission. And that's when Shin totally freaks out, scrambling to swear he didn't do much, insisting they only won because Cassandra and the whole crew carried them. Angelina keeps pushing forward, insisting their performance was straight up incredible. But she can't believe he pulled a black orc into the group, especially when tracking down the real chieftain was all Alshon's doing. She says his leading a party of monsters is just like the legendary S-rank Demon King, and Shin shoots back that she's seriously overrating him. As he fumbles through a shaky explanation, insisting he's absolutely not their master. No, really, he's not. He claims Lime and the orcs are only there to back him up, but Angelina doesn't fall for it. She insists she's not overrating him at all. She closes the distance and tells him, face to face, that she genuinely thinks he's incredible. She broke down how she watched him grind for strength, pushing his body to the limit with his life on the line. It's all because he finally spotted the real Orc Lord, and once he won, he made sure nothing was left unfinished. She tells him, go ahead, brag a little today. It's totally fine. He was basically pushing him to go brag to everyone that he killed the boss, so Shin just froze, completely stunned and speechless. Right as their conversation kicks off, Yumi suddenly shouts from down the way, demanding Angelina give her just a second of her time. Angelina lets out a heavy sigh, looking totally crushed, because right as they're about to hit the good part of their conversation, he leans in, picks out his clothes, and whispers to Shin that they should totally snatch a meal together soon. As she bolts away, Shin just stands there, wheezing for air, thinking, that was way too close for comfort. Until Cassandra bursts in, waving her arms like crazy and shouting his name to yank his attention. She pouts and fires, why didn't you call out to me, and yells, you're mean, while he awkwardly blurts that he didn't want to get in her way. Her eyes lock onto his with pure intensity, and she tells him if it's him, then it's totally okay before insisting they drink together. They clink their mugs, and Chen leans in, asking what she's been yapping about because, wow, she's definitely had a few too many. Cassandra's cheeks flare red as she drops her gaze to her drink, admitting right there that she's been going on and on about her hero. Shun tells her, I get it, everyone has someone they're looking up to, then pushes for the key detail and asks what the adventurer she's talking about is called. Pollux keeps her hero's name under wraps while she drinks, but the moment she's safe, she unloads a massive thank you for saving her life back in that cave. She tells him that for one terrifying moment, she thought it was over for her, but she's just relieved he showed up in time because he'd been seriously panicking about her. She stares up at him with wide, shining eyes, completely shaken as she blurts out, wait, were you really worried about me? Then she totally loses control, screaming that she's so happy as she barrels into Shin, smashing into him so hard he can barely manage to yell out her name. Pollux hugs his chest and blurts out an apology, blaming the alcohol for making him so clingy, yet she can't help adding that he smells absolutely amazing. She locks eyes with him and blurts out, I've been holding this in for forever, will you listen? While Shin freezes on the spot, panicking like crazy. Right as she's about to spill her real feelings to him, some idiot blasts her name from across the room and shatters the moment. It's her brother, Castor, who jumps in to scold her for acting so unseemly, tells her to cling to him instead of some pathetic weakling, then he gets cut off mid-sentence. Pollux snaps that her brother's a total idiot for ruining such a close moment, while Castor sprawls on the floor, sobbing that his shins got absolutely shattered. Sheen opens his mouth to ask what she was about to say, but then he clamps down on the urge because whatever it is, it'll have to wait for later. Pollux flashes this terrifying grin and tells Shin she can't believe he ditched her just to go flirt with other girls, making everything feel like a slap in the face. She hits him with, talk about nerve, then straight up says she'll kill him so he can only sweat, stunned, begging, why are you so mad? He tries to swear he wasn't hitting on anyone, but one slip flips everything he blurts that he was just talking to girls, and the second the words land, he realizes he's buried himself. Pollux snaps and screams that she'll beat that attitude clean out of him, turning what was supposed to be a simple mock battle into a full-blown disaster. A brutal, one-sided beatdown that forces him to crumple and face the mat totally wrecked. Next morning, Shin throws open his window and stares out at the calm town below, dead quiet and waiting. Then he's struck by Cassandra. Why did he ever think he could beat her? Yet he still feels this deep relief that they survived everything side by side. A few days have passed since that brutal orc riot, and the guild is finally getting its act together back to running things like nothing happened. So Shen straps himself up to leave with Lime, snatches a tiny item, and mutters, "Yeah, I should take it just in case." He shoves the item into his gear, praying with everything he's got that he won't need it for whatever chaos hits next. Now that the cave path is finally cleared, Shin and Cassandra rush back to keep the promise they swore standing there, right at the entrance. Shin glances at Cassandra and tells her he truly believes in her. This is the massive moment they've been waiting for. Cassandra locks her eyes on him, smirks, and tells him she knows every trick in the book because she's not losing, not while her partner is watching from right beside her. She steps into the clearing where Schwain's waiting, throws out a quick apology for the delay, and asks how his injuries are healing. Schwain crossed his huge arms and admitted he was so bored just thinking about going after her himself. He locks eyes with her and tells her that if she's the one bringing him down, he couldn't ask for a sweeter ending, so he steps in and declares it's time to start. The three of them fanned out across the open ground, tension snapping tight in the air as they got ready for the duel to kick off. Lime cranes his neck to Chin and snaps, "Does this fight even matter?" And Chin cracks, "I hate watching my friends get hurt, but we've got a promise to keep." He finally gets it. Schwain kept his promise, so they better do the same for him. No excuses. As Schwain warms up, Shen can't help but smirk because for a warrior like him, facing a brutal opponent head-on is the truest kind of respect. Cassandra tells Shin, "Don't worry about me." Then she flashes a grin and admits she's been craving this fight too, and she sinks into a low stance opposite Schwain. And with the countdown finally here, they lock in and brace because the showdown is about to start. Cassandra's prophecy and deadly flame magic slam into Schwain's wild berserker strength, and with every hit, it's impossible to say who's got the upper hand. Because they've already brawled side by side before, they read each other like a playbook, so this is all about who can outsmart the other first. Sheen stands on the sidelines, sweating bullets, because the first move is coming any second, and he can't take his eyes off it as they both snap into action at the exact same moment, so lightning fast the whole field turns into blur after blur. Schwain launches a brutal, heavy swing with his blade, but Cassandra is lightning fast, darting past him in a blur and proving. She hurls her speed into overdrive, and Lime's head spins as she realizes she's already nailed the first hit. Then she drives the big guy backward with pure force. She pins him in place with a non-stop storm of strikes, and Shin clocks the danger in her pressure because he knows Schwain is one heartbeat away from slamming into berserk mode for a brutal counterattack, and it has him staring at Cassandra like, "So how the hell are you going to survive this?" Schwain bursts into laughter, tells Cassandra she's not bad at all, and even goes as far as saying if she were an orc he'd propose to her on the spot. Cassandra just smirks and shrugs, like she can't understand a single word he's saying, but she's still cracking up and having the time of her life. She surges forward, keeps the pressure on Schwain, refuses to give an inch, and coils up for a brutal overhead slam. That massive blade slams into the ground with a thunderous crash. But before the dust even settles, it turns out the big guy was aiming for something completely different. Shen stands on the sidelines and just snaps screaming like crazy because he can't believe Schwain actually kicked his own sword to redirect its path. Cassandra doesn't even blink. She stays locked in on the chaos, waiting for the exact second he's wide open so she can strike. And Schwain barrels right back at her, screaming that she's got him mixed up with the guy she fought before, and she zips aside like it's nothing, tells him she saw it coming from a mile off, and leaves the orc completely dumbfounded. He skids across the dirt, fighting for balance, but he's painfully too slow to react to what's about to hit him next. Cassandra explodes forward and carves an upward slash across his chest, blood bursting everywhere, and she sticks the landing with razor-perfect timing. Cassandra looms over the beaten orc and tells him, I just need to knock you out no fatal strike so I can keep you from spiraling into a total frenzy. As Swain lies there utterly crushed, she leans in close and declares, "This is official checkmate." The big guy takes it in stride and straight up admits it was a total defeat, while Cassandra calmly sheaths her blade, and he even calls it a great final fight with zero regrets. So, yeah, that's what leads to. Cassandra glares at the orc and yanks her attention to Shin, demanding a translation, and Shin just nods, saying it's all handled. Shen whips around to Swain and demands why he didn't just let his wounds heal first, but Swain fires back with, "That's what you're actually worried about." Swain stares at his hand and snaps that he should have already lost it after that other guy cut it off, so telling him to wait through a full recovery is asking for the impossible. He locks eyes with them and basically dares them, "Go on, if you're really satisfied, kill me now," because if they spare him, he'll snap back and start attacking humans all over again. And he also knows they'd never go for that. Cassandra locks eyes with Chin and says she's got a request. Then Chin answers, "Wait, I was thinking the exact same thing." Chin tells Swain begged him to promise he'd stop attacking humans, saying everything could change, but the orc cut him off on the spot, declaring it was impossible. He folds his arms and makes it crystal clear his whole life is for finding and fighting the strongest opponents, and if that gets taken away, he'd rather not live at all. Shin realizes that maybe they don't have to wipe everyone out. Maybe they can find a way to live side by side, and that thought sparks a plan. And he fires the question at Swain. "So your only real wish is to fight guys like that?" Then he snaps back that the toughest opponents don't even have to be human, and Swain's about to get shaken. It forces Swain to finally admit it's true. And then he points out the scary part: humans are basically the only ones who still crawl into this cave anymore. Sotian grins and says, "That's only true as long as the orc stays trapped in this cave." And then he tells Swain, "If you want a real challenge, come with us." Swain is totally stunned by the offer. Shin lays it out right now. They're sitting third from the top, but they're not settling. They're chasing the very highest rank for adventurers, and yeah, there's a catch coming next. And says they're bounced around everywhere for different jobs. Then Shen drops the bomb where they're headed. They'll likely face enemies even nastier than him or Cassandra, which leaves. Swain goes, "Are you sure you're cool with this since I'm a different race?" But Chen just shrugs him off and says, "We've already got Lime with us, so it's no big deal." And then even so, loads of adventurers watched him tear into the old chieftain. He tells the orc not to worry, because nobody back at the guild is going to give him trouble, and then Swain just drops his gaze and in a low voice admits he gets it. Shen finishes it off by telling the orc, "Come with us up to the surface." Swain pauses for half a heartbeat, then nods, saying, "I get it." And Shin fires off a huge thumbs up and tells Swain to get moving, promising the orc that the world outside is way more fun than he ever imagined. And they slam their hands together to seal the deal, while Cassandra and Lime stare as the new team snaps into place and the group. The crew heads back into the city, where the town square is crammed wall to wall with people right in the middle of a blazing, normal day, and that's when things start to go off the rails leading to Shin linking up with Angelina, dressed sharp in nice clothes. She bursts into laughter and calls him out for being early, clocking that shocked look on his face. But Shin's still totally lost. He blurts out, "Are you really supposed to be working right now?" She grins, saying her co-worker is covering her shift. So she turns bright red and tells her she looks amazing, even admitting he nearly mistook her for some noble lady. Then Angelina's cheeks burn and she starts to stammer, And she admits it's been forever since they've actually hung out outside the guild. And he's just like, yeah, because she always seems swamped with everything whenever he saw her. But Angelina flips it on him, telling Shin that he's the one who's been crushing it lately, ever since his promotion. Then Shin starts to fumble, all flustered, and tells her the only reason he's even standing here today is because of what she and that other person drilled into him. Shin drops a nostalgic comment about that person, and Angelina's face ignites with a blush as she remembers how, every time they went out, they were inseparable. She just can't stop thinking about it, and she mentions a shop she's been itching to check out all day. Shin grins, because he was thinking the exact same thing. He's He tells them to go right now, but his thoughts spiral back to all the ways this could have blown up if that person hadn't been there leading to. A flashback hit back when the three of them were brand new adventurers, standing at the guild counter for the very first time. Young Jason was already strutting like he owned the place, bragging that he'd taken down a horned rabbit with zero trouble and then pressing for an even tougher challenge. Medea whips her eyes up at him, snarling at him to shut his mouth as he bulldozes the guild staff with pure, unbelievable rudeness. Shin has to jump in and shut them both down. Then he turns to apologize to Angelina for the whole mess they've caused. Jason shrugs it off and blurts, "So you're using the rabbit as materials?" And that instantly leaves Angelina flustered, because she has to explain that the reward only shows up after the appraisal. Jason tells her to take care of it, then shouts for everyone to move out, leaving the desk sitting there behind them. Suddenly, Jessica, just like that, storms into the scene and warns them that gift holders like her are going to be a total nightmare to handle. Jessica leans in and asks Angelina if she's even listening, then teases her for being so ice-cold and burned out once a hard-working subordinate, but still stuck in that role. But things get weird fast when Jessica offers to massage her stiff muscles. Angelina yanks back and warns, "Just wait, I'm about to get seriously mad." Jessica waves it off with a laugh, then slides him a can of drink like a peace treaty. She even says it's a brand new product that's supposed to smash exhaustion and while Jessica dives into her cup, Angelina leans in, sniffs that herb tea and goes, "Whoa, this smells different." Then they both pause for a second before. Angelina's tough face crumbles, and she finally confesses she's been feeling seriously worried lately. She still remembers how Jason and Ath were absolutely dead set on becoming adventurers, but the girl who wanted to be the god of medicine was something else entirely, and it left her staring in confusion like, why? Why would that girl ever link up with people like Shin when his translator power didn't look like it belonged in a dungeon party at all? Jessica sits through the whole story, grins, and tells Angelina she should just ask her directly. Right as the conversation's rolling, Shin pops up behind them, suddenly looking shaky, asking if he's interrupting, and that's where things get cut off. Angelina tried to keep it professional as she asked how she could help, but Jessica spun around and told Shin to follow her because there was something she urgently wanted him to see. A dark-skinned hand slams a haul of foraged treasures onto the counter, and right there sits a mountain of rare mushrooms plus weird plants still yanked clean with their roots attached. Jessica leans in super close to snag the best view of the loot, her face lighting up like she can't believe it, while Angelina just stares, eyes narrowed like, "What's going on with..." With the veteran guild member right beside her, she yanks out a lens and studies the glowing stone. Jessica can't hide her shock, saying these things are insanely rare, the kind you almost never spot even on high-level gathering quests. A rush of sweat hits her as the excitement spikes, and she blurts, "How the heck did you score something this rare?" Before he can answer, she snaps, all defensive, "No way this isn't stolen." He tells them the guild already knows about his special gift, then explains that the animals he befriended in the woods literally guided him to all the best spots. But Jessica isn't buying it as easy, because that whole process sounds like a headache. Sheen says he'll talk to them, yet he's still the one stuck handling every single negotiation. After a quick pause, Jessica decides to swap the items for fast cash, then rushes to get Shin started on his official training. She locks eyes with Shin and tells him he's had a ridiculous stroke of luck, especially because he cleared his very first quest with zero problems and walked away with a bag stuffed full of rare materials. Jessica can't believe he might even need those beginner lessons anymore, but Shin's face hardens with a serious look, like that first wild trip into the world finally opened his eyes and made him realize that he's got to get way stronger if he wants to stand by his friend's side, and the only way is to soak up everything he can right now. Shin stares at his hands, feeling every ounce of his own weakness crush down on him. He knows he can't fight like Jason, but he's desperate to claw his way back to his old friends, even if he only gains a tiny bit. He stares back on that old party, and it hits him hard Jason slammed into the front first, while Asu kept pumping out crushing magic support he simply couldn't replicate, and that's why he's stuck on this. That's why his mind is locked in right now. He's staring at the only goal, yelling at himself that he has to catch up to them, no matter what. Braced against the guild counter, she tells Jessica that his drive is exactly why he's asking for her training, and Jessica just grins, thinking his attitude really isn't that bad at all. Jessica admits she genuinely likes people who take everything seriously. Then she pauses, smiling a little like she's about to confess, saying she's got one small burning curiosity. She leans in and asks Shin if he can use his gift to talk to monsters too, and Shin answers instantly, saying he can talk to anything as long as it's got a will. Jessica whips around to Angelina, locks eyes, and growls, "Angie," warning her she's about to become a massive headache. Then Angelina just freezes, totally confused, and blurts, "What do you mean?" Jessica says being able to talk to anything is a massive cheat code for gathering intel, but there's a social side to it that can blow up in your face. She tells her to picture the scene. Someone wanders into a cave and finds an adventurer just standing there, chatting like it's casual with a monster, and everyone's reaction in their head. Angelina pauses for a beat, then admits it would look absolutely unhinged like the guy snapped, or like some nasty enemy spell had him under control. Jessica locks eyes with him and growls that using his gift recklessly could get him killed, because if he isn't careful, other adventurers will zero in on him again. Sotian starts freaking out. He's like, "What am I even supposed to do? If my only real skill makes me a target, then I'm doomed." Jessica shot her hand up to stop him cold, telling him to breathe, calm down, and finally listen to what she was about to say next. She tells him, straight up, what he needs right now isn't more power. It's a reputation that finally turns heads. She tells him straight up, trust the guild and the Hitori family, then go build alliances with every local craftsman and merchant you can, because Angelina flat out says there's no real big work for him to chase anyway, and Jessica nods along, scrunching her face in disbelief at the idea of a rookie trying to handle anything on his own. Suddenly, Angelina spots a perfect fix for his problem, and though she's got this idea, worry still pinches her face as she wonders what Jessica is plotting. Jessica's eyes blaze, and she leans into Shin. She and Angelina are going to pound every scrap of guild and city knowledge into him until he can't miss a thing. She stands there radiating pure confidence, and then boom, she reveals she's a C-rank instructor and pushes him to be her personal assistant. When she asks Jin what he thinks of her idea, his eyes flare to life, and he lunges at the opportunity, practically begging her to let him take the job. The next few weeks smash into a total blur for Shin. He's sprinting non-stop, running errands after errands, and just trying to keep up as it all spirals. He burns every day off from his main party, tailing Jessica non-stop until he's heaving these brutal, heavy loads up that ramp mid-climb, then it cuts off at M. Climbing those mountains and grinding through study sessions until his head spun, only to realize Jessica is a brutal slave driver. She's basically schooling him from the ground up, hooking him into her massive web of contacts, and before he even knows it, time is flying, because the next thing you know, it's a whole new chapter of chaos. A whole year rips by, and then boom, every ounce of hard work finally pays off as their group's rank climbs. And just like that, Shin's reputation starts skyrocketing while Jason throws a full-on celebration finally. The party hits D rank, and Jason can barely hold back his excitement, feeling. He was completely full of himself, swinging that brand new sword like it owned the place, bragging that he'd reach A rank in no time. He whips around to Shin and hammers it into him. Stop wasting time with weak crowds and start training for real because he's not backing down. But Shin's done playing nice. He snaps at Jason that those connections are the only reason that sword exists at all. Asu watches them and thinks, so Shin's leveling up means I'm about to drown in even more work. Angelina freezes for a split second, choosing to honor Shin's wishes for now, but Jason won't let it drop. He huffs, snaps up a rumor he heard, and claims an adventurer died at a party Angelina was supposed to be watching over. Shin snaps at him to shut it, then lays it out. Once you're in D rank, everything gets brutal, and accidents start happening all the time. Jason pretends he finally understands for a second, straight up admitting they could get wiped out if they slack, but the moment his ego kicks back in, he starts bragging that a guy as great as him would never mess up. As Shin turns to leave, Jason shouts after him, asking where he's going, and Shin just waves him off and says he's headed to a meeting. The story cuts to a bar. Shin is sprawled out cold on the counter beside Angelina, totally out of it like he drank a little too hard. He groggily jolts awake at last, baffled about how he even passed out. Then it hits him. Jessica had told him to try that drink, and now his head is pounding like crazy. He snags the very tail end of Jessica and Angelina's apology session, then jumps in fast and asks what they're even talking about. Jessica kept firing off details about that party finally hitting D rank, totally losing it with excitement at the thought of cashing in for real money while, as she tries to comfort Angelina, insisting this tragedy wasn't her fault. Angelina only keeps her eyes down, whispering that she never wants to watch anyone else die again. Sheen spots Angelina's crushed, sad expression and fires off the obvious question: if this job is ruining her, why doesn't she just quit? Angelina barely whispers into the counter that it's impossible because, yeah, she truly loves what she does, and too many people rely on her, so she just keeps nodding, finally admitting to herself that she's been so devoted she can't just turn and walk away. Jessica leaps in to back her up, telling Angelina to trust herself because her work genuinely saves lives. And soon Angelina's quiet words carry a little more strength as she finally starts feeling better. As Angelina slumps passed out on the table, she shoots Jessica a terrified look, begs her not to end up like the others, and screams that she just needs her to stay alive. Jessica flashes a huge grin, basically laughs it off, and tells him there's no way she's dying yet. She's already stacked a mountain of money for her dream, and that future is the reason she's not stopping now. Jessica finally spots a real path to open her own shop, and she's done letting anyone try to end her, so when she tells Angelina, Angelina lights up and makes her promise that her and Shin will be the very first customers. Not long after that night, Jessica finally hung up her instructor status for good, and at the same time, Shin was climbing the ranks as a solo adventurer until everything was about to flip on him as. In the end, he slid into Jessica's old role and started training the new recruits, and suddenly, all three of them were slammed with their own lives, so hanging out together stopped happening like it used to. Angelina was crushing it too. She finally snagged a promotion at the guild, and in her new role she looked genuinely happy, greeting everyone with a bright smile, like life. For a while, life felt downright amazing. Shin threw himself into training every single day, and it was like everything finally started clicking into place. As the days dragged on, Shin suddenly gets called out by someone nearby, and it's exactly the disaster he'd been fearing was about to hit. And he whips around at once, demanding answers. Pollux, what happened? She's gasping so hard she can barely breathe, choking out Jessica's name, and then she bursts into the next part. Then she finally chokes out the truth. Jessica just got dragged in with injuries so brutal they look unreal. Pollux blurts that the whole guild is in full panic right now, and before Shin even hears the details, he snaps and bolts. Right at the guild entrance, everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs to clear a path for an emergency while Angelina just freezes in stunned disbelief, and another girl yanks her to look away before she sees too much. But it's already too late. Then a stretcher barrels past, and a dark trail of blood follows as everyone finally realizes it's Jessica, right there, lying in the wreckage. Shin finally bursts onto the scene, pure panic flooding his face as he screams Angelina's name. He spots her safe behind the counter, and the person nearby lets out a huge sigh of relief. Yeah, she's at least okay, but Angelina glares at him and says the guild staff told her he'd probably show up still gasping from that sprint, barely standing, so she can't. Angelina's eyes snap away, her face aching, and she tells him, voice soft but steady, that she's fine, then begs him to go home for now. Sheen stays put and tells Angelina, you can't just leave when I'm this upset, and Angelina answers, fine, if you want to talk, I'll listen, but... Then she suddenly snaps, shut up, and Shin freezes, completely blindsided as he blurts her name. Angelina finally loses it, screaming at the top of her lungs, insisting she's fine, then roaring that she'll end up dead just like everyone else. She won't quit. She snaps that he needs to stop being so damn nice, swear he's staying miles away from her, so Shin just stares at her with a deadly serious look and bluntly tells her, point blank, that he's not dying. Angelina snaps at him, screaming he's a liar. Then she blasts that people like Lava, Hayes, and Juna all swear the same promise right before they get killed, and she reminds him that even Jessica said everything was going to be totally fine, so why, right now? But now it's real, she could actually die, and the crushing weight of it breaks Angelina, dropping her to the floor as she sobs in tears. She drops to her knees, lowers herself to his level, and whispers her name like the world just cracked while she sits there shattered, Then he locks eyes with her, full of unshakable confidence, and swears again that he will not die. Shan tells Angelina he's got every scrap of knowledge and experience those old friends hammered into him, and now he's telling her to just trust him. Angelina drops her gaze, tears spilling as she whispers that all people like her ever get is to stand there and watch the adventurers march away. And she feels everyone else is out there throwing their lives on the line while she's stuck doing nothing but praying. She snaps back, "No, that's not what this is at all." Because she's so good at snagging the right quests, they can finally step out into the world feeling safe. He leans in and tells her, "When the world gets brutal out there, I don't fall apart. I hold on to the thought of your smile, and it's what drags us forward." So he locks eyes with her and demands she never, ever say she does nothing for them. Angelina's eyes sting with fresh tears as she whispers his name again, and then she snaps, lunges into his arms, and sobs her heart out while Jessica stands there at the counter, watching in shock. Jessica breaks into laughter at the whole mess, replaying in her mind how she truly thought it was over for her, but she can't resist roasting Shin for that cheesy "I won't die" line, and he ends up burying his face in pure, total embarrassment. Angelina lets out a huge breath of relief, grinning as she tells everyone, "I'm just so happy Jessica is safe and sound." Jessica flashed her a big smile and winked like, "Yep, I did make that promise to you after all." Over at the bar, while everyone's talking, someone suddenly blurts out that Jessica's days as an adventurer are officially finished. Honestly, it's for the best she finally opened the shop she'd been dreaming about, and boom, it's already a hit with all the local girls. Jessica leans in close and whispers to Angelina, demanding to know if the person nearby is really tied to Shin by blood. Angelina should look totally stunned by the question, standing right nearby. Over by the next table, Cassandra just sits there with Schwain and Lime, and everyone's stunned that she's actually chilling with them. Cassandra's cheeks burst with color as she stammered that she'd just wandered in and caught them by chance, then quickly added she didn't want to ruin their moment. Shen tries to patch things up by having Jessica bring out food the entire group can dig into together. So Jessica flashes him a grin as she snatches a snack and tells him straight up that he's been leveling up. Those moves are seriously smooth lately. Jessica says she'll place the order while everyone heads to the terrace, and all she can manage is a quick, "Thanks." He marches the others out into the night as Jessica waves at him from the bar. Everyone clinks their mugs together, cheering like they just conquered the world until Shin and Cassandra dive into a massive spread of food and start digging in right away. Schwain shovels food into his mouth while Angelina and Jessica chat nearby, totally unaware of the chaos at his plate. Cassandra asks if these are the comrades Shin picked for himself, and she says they all look like a solid bunch. Jessica nods and agrees, but she admits she was shocked because he began teaming up with monsters, and that choice left. Leaving Lime absolutely stunned, she realized the bigwigs really did sign off on their party because Shin had earned it. Angelina looks wrecked, saying the entire ordeal nearly broke her. Jessica asks if she's got a name for his party yet, but he and Lime still can't agree on one. Cassandra finally throws out the name Legion, and the others immediately pause, staring at each other like, "Wait, that actually hits hard." Shin's into it, but he refuses to move until everyone's fully on board. Cassandra and Schwain are down immediately, and even Lime admits it sounds badass, so they make it official on the spot. The whole crew slams their mugs together for a toast, and Shin declares that right now, starting today, they're officially known as Legion. That night, she cuts back through the city streets, guided by a blazing full moon overhead. He hummed a little tune as he desperately tried to pin down where the house was, while Lime and Schwain were already checked out, only thinking about getting food and somewhere to crash. As he closes in on the building, he spots someone posted at the front door, just standing there. So he slips behind a wall to vanish. Then a rat nearby blurts out that this guy's been posted there since before the sun even set. Shin grabs hold of his tiny informant's intel and slowly peeks around the corner. Then he sees something that slams the brakes on him, dead still. The thing they're gripping in their hands looks way too familiar to brush off. He strides right up to them, stops just a few feet away, and demands, "So is she really a Sioux?" The moon looms high above the city, bathing the clouds in silver on this calm, silent night where Asu is waiting right outside, looking furious. She calls Shin an idiot and rants about how long she's been stuck standing there. Shin just freezes on the spot, staring at the hooded girl and praying it's really her because, but she doesn't stall. 1 second she blurts, "Hey!" then instantly demands whether the rumors are real about him leaving the Golden Fleece. She's totally blindsided because she already knows, and before he can even start explaining, she tumbles straight into his arms. He's totally clueless until she slides in close, and she leans in and takes a long, lingering sniff, then locks eyes with him and snaps, "You smell like another woman," which totally sends Shin into a full-on panic. His face is blazing red as he stammers, "Wait, what are you even talking about?" Trying his best to keep calm while his words stutter out, he blurts, "Why are you even hanging around outside my house at this hour?" So Asu finally snaps out of it, leans back for a breather, and gets dead serious. She's not here for small talk. She needs to ask him for a favor. Shin's drenched in sweat, staring at Ath like he can't process a single word, when Ath bluntly asks if he's actually scared. She locks eyes with him and blurts out that she wants him to come with her to the village of Gorgons, and Shin just freezes in place, utterly stunned, blurting the name of the place over and over like his brain can't catch up. The air feels suffocating, so he tries to cut the tension, offering to make tea, telling her to just wait a second while. Ath finally settles in, shrugs off her coat, and flashes her rank B gear like it's nothing. As they finally settle in, Shun's doubts spike. He straight up asks if she was part of the crew that agreed to kick him out, and he can't stop thinking, so why? And that's why she's popping up right now, because she's got a favor to ask. And he immediately hands her a steaming mug, warning her, "Be careful," right before so. She takes a quick sip, then leans in and demands he tell her everything that happened while she was gone, because the moment he starts, she figures out fast that. And she hasn't even spoken to Jason yet, so he drops into his seat and lays out everything, how he survived since his exile, how they built a brand new guild. Ath doesn't crack a smile. She glares straight at him and demands to know if he has even the tiniest idea why she's furious right now. He starts sweating, panicking as he realizes somehow he's the one being hauled over the coals right now. He dips his head low and blurts out an apology to Ath, admitting he genuinely has no idea what he's supposed to say. Ath lets out a long, tired sigh and tells him, "Just listen to me for a second." She leaned back, then fired off the question, did he even bother sitting down, talking things through with Jason? She leans in and reminds him years ago, the three of them swore a promise to become heroes together. Ath swears Jason would never kick him out for real, but Shin snaps back. Jason flat out told him he wasn't strong enough. He still remembers Jason snapping, "Lately, you've just been helping everyone else, and it looks like you've given up on yourself." Ath snaps that Jason's a total idiot playing games, hiding what he feels, and acting like he's honest when he's not, because he probably just wanted to light a fire under him with a kick to the ribs. A look flashes across her face, and she snaps, "Bet that moron woman was the one whispering in Jason's ear while I was gone." Ath starts clowning Medea, mimicking how she must have told Jason she'd test if she was worthy of their group, like she's the one who stuffed his head full of all that trash. Ath leans in and asks Shin if he seriously didn't clock that Jason was trouble from day one since they grew up together, and Shin has no choice but to admit he's always been a total headache. He shoots his gaze aside and tells her that even if she's right about how Jason acts, some things just can't be said out loud. For a beat, Shingo goes silent. His face says there's something heavy weighing on his mind. Athie cuts in, staring down as she spits it out. She's not just furious at him and Jason, she's furious at herself for not noticing how hard he was struggling, and she drops into a deep bow and blurts, "I'm really sorry I failed you," even though they've been together forever. After the apology, Ath snaps his head up and fires off. "So you're really saying I'm not going back to the Golden Fleece party, point blank?" Shun clenched his fist so tight his arm started to shake, firing out "sorry" to Athie, but he locks eyes with her, face set like stone, and flat out tells her he'll never ever go back there. Athie lets out a breath, says, "Okay, I get it," and admits, "Yeah, this is just how it is, even if She warns him not to get comfortable because she's coming for him and Jason for real, and that promise makes a chill crawl straight down Shin's spine. Ath sidesteps the whole thing and leans in to ask Shin something new. She's got a burning question for him. Her voice trembles a little as she asks, point blank, what kind of person Cassandra really is. Shin flashes a smile and says she's an amazing person, then admits she's a bit shy but insists she's insanely skilled and that he knows he can count on her. Sometime, he plops back on the bed and admits it's almost impossible to find someone that dependable unless you're dealing with a top-tier guild. She tells him she's fine for now, and reminds him there aren't any active guild jobs anyway, so he asks if it's cool for him to run it by his team first. Ath flashes a gentle smile and thanks him, while Shin just exhales in relief because finally, the tension between them is back to normal. Under a blazing full moon, the night keeps rolling over the city. Eventually, Ath breaks out in a huge yawn, completely wiped out from talking for way too long. Shen sets his drink down and pitches, "Let's hit the guild together tomorrow morning," and she nods without even thinking. Suddenly, Ath starts getting cozy right there and announces she's heading to bed. Then Shin panics on the spot, yelling that this is actually his room. But she just blushes, shakes it off, and swears it doesn't bother her one bit because they've been sharing the same bed since they were little kids. Shun's face flushes bright red, sweat breaks out, and he blurts out that they were just little kids back when they shared the same bed. Ether shrugs off his freakout, ducks under the covers, and tells him good night like nothing happened. Shen lunges to stop her, shouting, "Hold up, I'm not finished," then slams the question, "Are you really going to kick me out when I'm homeless right now?" Ath peeks over the blanket's edge with a bruised, sad stare and tells Shin, "You're being really mean to me, you know." It hits him perfectly. He's still flustered, but he lets out a breath, then tells her she can stay for just one. Ath giggles into her pillow, grinning at Shin and whispering that he's actually a super kind guy after all. She finally relents and whispers goodnight, sliding onto the floor beside the bed as he carefully tucks her in. He looks absolutely wiped out, but he forces himself to get his gear ready because only then can he finally crash and get some sleep. Right as he's about to move, Ath shoots a hand out in her sleep, clutches his sleeve, and mumbles for him not to go. Shin freezes, staring down at her, caught in his own thoughts, labeling her as a Sioux. He realizes how insane it is he came back and finds his whole party basically shattered, and his old childhood friends still nowhere to be seen. She looks totally crushed, realizing his other half just kicked off a brand new party and ditched him all alone in this town. Ath tells him it's okay, whispers that she's right there for him, and Shin just shuts down in silence. And the sunrise starts blazing over the massive stone building where they'd crashed for the night. Shin jolts awake at the table, rubs the sleep from his eyes, smells something sizzling, and blurts, "What is that?" And then he bursts out a huge yawn, stretches his back like he's waking up from a dream, and grins, "Good morning." Ath looks sad, but couldn't hide the blush, mumbled that she'd cooked him breakfast with troll meat and herbs to pump his energy back up then, Shen. He can't stop thinking it's a brand new recipe, even if the meat sounds totally off and right. Then Ath looks alarmed, asks if she's been a nuisance, because he's clearly wiped out. Shen snaps, tells her absolutely no, then admits he wasn't refusing her, he was just lost in the memories, soaking up how nostalgic all of it feels. He tells her they should just eat, then takes one huge bite, and his face goes wide with pure shock at how good it tastes. He's shocked it actually tastes like pork, and then Ath grins like she just won saying she knew it was her best work yet. Shin finishes his drink and thinks, those weird ingredients and it still slaps, then drops the mug and tells Ath, thanks for the food, Ath. Math takes a sip from her own cup, leans in, and says it's straight him showing up with a job request is huge, like he's finally breaking through and making real progress. And then the talk turns to Jason. He breaks in with hard-earned intel from his travels, and it's clear he's on a mission to track down everything needed for a panacea. And Jason makes it crystal clear he's dying to tap into Shin's exact skills so he can get his hands on it. Back in the present, Shin breaks down everything for his new crew and fires the big question, what do they think about taking the job? Shin blurts out that maybe this brutal mission finally lets him square up with someone strong, while Swain just prays it turns into nothing but an easy paycheck. Cassandra isn't buying any of this, and straight up asks Shin if he's really okay with jumping in, reminding him these are the same people who threw him out like trash. Shin tries to brush it off as a misunderstanding, but Ath cuts in right away. She makes it crystal clear this isn't about that old party at all. It's a personal favor she's asking just for him. She snaps into this super serious face and tells her straight up that she would have never let those guys exile him if she'd been there. This would have never happened on her watch, full stop, leaving in. A heavy, breathless silence swallowed the space between her and Cassandra as they locked eyes and stared each other down. Shun lunges in fast to cut the tension, barking at both of them to shut it because they're still inside the guild. A voice from the side chimes in, bluntly agreeing with him like, yeah, he's 100 right. She snaps her eyes wide when Angelina strides up, then tells him point blank that the lawsuit is on his side. She adds that his track record is rock solid, and suddenly the whole deal feels way more legit. And Ath backs it up right now. He swears he'll front half the reward as a deposit, and she'll foot the bill for every supply they need. Angelina swears she can personally back him up. She's known him since his rookie days, so she turns to the crew and asks what they really think. Cassandra pauses for half a heartbeat, then mutters that it sure looks like they've got no real choice. So she finally snaps and gives in. She tells everyone, straight up, they're taking the job. Then she whips her gaze to Shin and demands to know if he planned to join this mission even after everyone else told him no. She jokes that being partners lets her see straight through him, but she still makes the rounds checking if Lime and Swain are really good with the plan. Shen's visibly freaking out about the situation, but Swain and Lime are locked in, totally ready to roll. Cassandra strides up to Ath and introduces herself properly, then Swain and Lime step right in, standing tall as they each shout out their names. Shin yanks out the paperwork to lock the contract in place, but Ath's eyes glaze over because the voice hitting his ears sounds way too familiar. As they stride through town, Shin can't stop thinking about the sister Ath brought up earlier, while she gestures and points out a shop just up the road. Swain jumps at the chance to hit up a local stall, grabbing new gear and testing how deadly that massive blade really is. Later at the library, Angelina races over to Shin and asks if he's uncovered anything scary in the old files he's digging through. Those records spell out a nightmare demon-made monster so vicious it can chomp right through Mithril like it's nothing. Shen points out that the last place they saw this is basically right next to where they're headed, though. Angelina can't help worrying. She's just spiraling over dusty old rumors. She couldn't stop the nervous sweat from breaking out as she warned him if he pushed his luck, he'd run straight into an A-rank monster out there. Shin just chuckles it away and tells her, if something that terrifying shows up, I'm snatching Ath and bolting before it can touch us. Shen finally exhales, because with allies like these at their side, they're not alone anymore. Swain and Lime grunt in agreement, and Shen vows he'll get everyone back in one piece right up. Ath rolls up in a huge horse-drawn carriage, blurting an apology for the wait, and Cassandra just stares like, wait is a ride this nice really Shin's personal property, because Ath always rides out on her own to remote spots where stagecoaches never go, and she tells everyone she's got money coming in on the side because that's exactly how they ended up with their own wheels for the trip. Shen figures he and Ath can just swap driving the whole way. He whips his head back, points at Cassandra and Swain, and orders them on official lookout duty for the ride, and then he blasts out orders, screaming for everyone to get moving because the remote Gorgon village is the prize, and the carriage finally lurches forward across the rocky plains. Once they're rolling down the road, Shin glances back and asks the two girls if they want to climb into the carriage and catch some rest, but Cassandra urges Shin to finally rest, but Ath refuses to move, insisting she's fine and demanding Cassandra go in instead, leaving Shin stuck right in the middle of the standoff. In the middle of it all, Cassandra just lets out a heavy sigh and tells everyone they better push themselves to get along because they're stuck on this trip together. Their journey hammers them through every kind of terrain, camping, scrubbing up, and pushing through like they've got nowhere else to be. After a long stretch of traveling, Cassandra leans out from the back and spots this forest is getting brutally dense. Shinad muttered to himself, saying they were almost at the village. This place was about to become their base. He figures if luck stays on their side, they'll reach tonight until a sudden thud slams from the back of the carriage, knocking him completely off guard. As Swain warns them that guests are about to roll in, he sniffs the air, swears he doesn't smell anyone strong, but he's still itching to have fun. And right then the group realizes they're getting boxed in by a gigantic swarm of my tango monsters. Swain drops down to deal with it. Shun screams that they don't want trouble, begs the creatures to just let them pass, but it's hopeless. Shin can tell the leader won't hear reason, and he's sure something's off with Neon Shun. So Swain steps up and snaps at Shin to back off. He's taking the fight from here. Shun screams a warning about the poison as Swain swings his massive blade, carving a path through it, and Cassandra leaps in, promising she'll keep the carriage safe. She points out Shin-Shi is on it, and let's fire up one last burst of energy to blow those mushroom monsters back into the shadows. Angelina's jaw drops as a gigantic wall of fire obliterates the monsters, and she can't help staring across and asking, don't you see how insanely amazing Cassandra is? But it's not only her. Swain is blasting through the battlefield like a black whirlwind, moving so fast he turns the swarm into chaos as he tears right through with pure, insane power. And even with all that going on, Shin finally realizes that too many enemies out there, and they can't possibly survive this like this. Cassandra fires off, "So what's the plan, Shin?" And right as he's about to speak, everyone spots something terrifying. The monsters start bubbling, then melting into each other like they're losing control. Shun spots the threat and screams at Swain to back up right now because the ground starts shuddering under their feet. The crew yanks back at the last second, just as a massive, disgusting blob starts forming, and she bursts out screaming, "What the hell is that thing?" Turns out every monster they just crushed is fusing together into one massive beast, and Shin's jaw drops at the nightmare staring back at him. Someone fires up wind magic to blast it away, and she screams, "You don't get to ignore it and let it grow." Cassandra locks eyes with the monstrous beast and demands they finish it off right this second, because if they don't, things are about to get way worse. The others demand, "How are we even supposed to handle this?" And she snaps back that if she goes all out, the entire forest gets erased too. Then Shin finally realizes, oh no, that's the real nightmare. The massive mushroom monster unleashes a thunderous roar that rattles the entire forest to its core. Shin locks eyes with it, convinced that even when it swells to any size, there's still a hidden core lurking somewhere inside. He won't blink his eyes, stay glued to the beast, because all he needs is one perfect, clean shot to end it. Angelina snaps into her casting as Swain smirks at the enemy like, "No talks, we're not here for a chat." Shin locks eyes on both of them and demands their help because they've got to smash through this together. Right then, the crew spots it. Its arm starts bubbling, warping, and turning into something far nastier. That creature is literally draining magic straight from the earth, gulping power to keep itself strong. The beast slams a massive limb down, cracking the earth so close to the party that it barely misses them. As Shin clocks that this thing is way faster than it looks, Cassandra leans in and blurts, "So what's the plan?" He orders her to tie the monster down until his signal hits, and she fires back, "Don't worry, I've got this." Shun blasts out a shout for everyone to shut the noise down as they regroup and gear up for the final push. The monster hurls a gigantic, crushing arm and slams it through the nearby trees like they're nothing. Chantel's Angelina clocks his attack up, and then she kicks off her chanting, like the power is about to explode. Swain swears he can feel an insane wave of power roaring through him as Just as Chintel Schwain says it's time to move, the orc snaps back, he's ready. Energy whirls around Shin's sword as he braces for a devastating strike. He drops out of the sky like a missile, driving a crushing punch straight for the monster. That massive beast just freezes like it's stunned into silence as the hit slams straight into its face. Cassandra keeps him busy as she unleashes a massive wind blade. Shouting that they're finishing this today, Schwain backs off, grabbing his breath as it burns in his chest. Shin slams everything he's got into one brutal swing, carving a massive hollow circle straight through the monster's chest. Angelina stares in shock, praying that one strike was the end of it, but Shin doesn't drop his guard. He tells her, it's not over yet. The beast's flesh starts yanking and snapping back into place, and then, oh wait, someone realizes it's still alive, actually healing mid-healing. Schwain spots a glowing core buried in the monster's squirming pile of regenerating flesh, and he snaps into action. He clenches his weapon as dark energy whips around his hand, then blasts forward in a chaotic spin-filled air assault. Shin rockets forward to help, yelling that he's coming to save him, but Cassandra yanks him back and orders him to just sit tight and watch. A blade plunges straight into the monster's core, and Schwain just sits there smirking, chuckling under his breath because, as the giant beast crumbles into nothingness, Shin rockets his sword overhead and roars in triumph like he just proved it at last. Later, Shin looms over Schwain while the orc gasps for breath, stunned and saying he still can't believe how fast Shin moved in that split second. Schwain just shrugs it off, says he got lucky, and admits he aimed straight for the loudest spot. Then Cassandra strolls by and tells him, "You did an amazing job." The giant monster finally crumbles, melting into a nasty puddle. Then Cassandra whips around to Shin and fires off, "All right, what's your plan for this mess?" "Yeah." He stares at the wreckage, can't stand the thought of leaving it behind, and then tells her, "I've got a really good idea." The whole group slows to a stop when someone screams, "It's finally over." And just like that, Angelina waves everyone in, because she's done cooking. She tells Shinchi she's made yet another masterpiece, and he's like, "I'm actually hyped to try it." But then things start getting weird when the whole crew, Schwain, Lime, and even Cassandra, just stands there, shaking with nerves, staring at that pot like it might explode. Everyone leans in, watching that bubbling soup churn, and then someone blurts out, "Did she really make this with those monster mushrooms as the main ingredient?" The group can't shake the feeling this might be unsafe to eat, but they shrug, dive in anyway, and gamble on what happens next. Schwain and Lime lock eyes with the skewers like they're walking into a fight, while Cassandra just stares at the food with pure, crushing doubt. The second they take a bite, Cassandra's eyes blow wide with shock, and Schwain instantly erupts screaming that the food is actually amazing. He insists he could chow down on this forever, and even Cassandra admits it's maddening how much he actually loves the meal. Cassandra's still reeling because Shin actually turned those monsters into a meal, so Shin leans in and explains that his gift tells him exactly how to clean and prep any ingredient. As Angelina ladles out more soup, she leans in and says Shin has changed a lot since they started traveling together, only for Shin to frown and ask if she really means it. But Angelina's dead serious. She leans in and tells him she's clocked it ever since he left his old party. He's never fought this well. Shin pauses, really thinks it over, and then says, "If I've actually gotten better, it's mostly because I finally have people I can trust with my life." He clenches his fist and finally admits he can actually grow. He's got potential. Angelina turns her face away, whispers something quiet, but when she stares into her bowl, frustration hits hard. He's come so far without her, and it feels unfair. She catches his mumble, asks what he said, and he waves it off like it's nothing, straight up brushing him aside. Next, Shintel tells the crew to start swapping in for rest, so they'll be fresh for tomorrow. Then Cassandra suddenly goes rigid, right in her tracks. Shin hears it too. He cups his ear and leans in, trying to figure out if there's really someone singing in the dark. The whole squad snaps into high alert. Shin's stuck, wondering if it's only villagers, while Angelina leans in and demands who in their right mind would be roaming out this late at night. Cassandra decides they've got to go take a look. Then Angelina snaps, "Don't push it. Regroup when the barrier's up." Shin just grins, says, "I've got it." And the two of them shove through tangled bushes and knee-high grass, determined to track down the source. Shin charges forward and spots an open stretch right up the path, and Cassandra suddenly clocks it. The singing they've been hearing is blasting straight from that same spot. As you and Cassandra creep closer, she blurts, "What do you see?" But he won't say a word, just stares through the trees in a wide-open clearing under the blazing full moon. They finally spot something that blows their minds. A girl stood on a rock with her back turned to them, and this eerie glow pulsed from her like something unreal was about to happen. She gets completely starstruck by her gorgeous singing, and when Cassandra notices the air itself seems to sparkle around her, everything feels like it's about to explode, but then For a split second, the tension snaps like that voice just hit him with a memory he can't shake. He shouts to see if anyone's there, and the girl immediately loses it, panicking that he might have actually spotted her standing in plain sight. Perseus lets out a laugh, smugly admitting he thought he'd banished her from sight until the girl is left reeling because Shin actually spotted her. Perseus throws himself into a dramatic pose and declares it's the power of love, then leaves the girl frozen in absolute silence. Shin's face tightens with sweat as the truth hits: someone else has been lurking in the woods this entire time. Perseus smirks like he already won, bragging that he knew it was her, but she just calls him out by name and snaps that eavesdropping really doesn't suit him at all. He starts calling her his songstress and swears she's still just as beautiful as ever, while she gapes at him like he's absolutely repulsive. Perseus drops to one knee and plays along, even when she spits that she hates him, so she barrels forward, screaming at him to explain why he's here in the first place. He tells her the truth is staring her right in the face, then launches into it how her eyes sparkle like the stars above. He doesn't stop there. He launches into praise for her sun-bright hair, then calls her little snaggle teeth adorably cute, like it's the best thing in the world. He swears he's only there, so he'll never miss a single second of her beauty But the girl is done completely over it, and Perseus just stands there looking clueless as he goes, "What's wrong, my princess?" The group huddles in the bushes, staring at the scene, and Cassandra asks if the two of them were really the ones singing earlier before she trails off. While Shin says he heard the words princess and knight, he's convinced it's a secret meetup. Then Angelina cuts in, saying it looks like a tragic clash between people from different social classes, like it's building towards some kind of forbidden romance. Cassandra keeps her eyes locked on them, and right away she realizes this doesn't feel like any fairy tale at all. It just sounds like it's like they're caught in the middle of a massive brawl. Perseus gets blasted by a girl in a kimono as she screams that he's in the way. Then she snaps at the stalker to go home. But Perseus is totally loving it. His face turns red as he blurts out, "More keep insulting me." He snaps to a new topic, claiming he has no idea who they are or where they came from. Just look. But when he locks eyes on their hiding spot, he snaps that Eve's dropout isn't exactly admirable, then tells them it's time to finally show their faces. The group jumps to their feet with their hands up, and Angelina blurts out that she's begging for forgiveness, while Shin scrambles to save face, claiming the singing was so stunning he physically couldn't move. Perseus loves the vibe, but the moment it clicks, his face hardens, he straightens up and demands who they are and why they're out here in the forest. Shin leans in and tells them, "Relax, we're just adventurers hired by Corinthos, hunting down ingredients for a brand new potion." Perseus listens to their story and says that's a brutal long haul, so they've got his sympathy, but then he snaps a warning to them. Shin cuts in, saying they probably won't even find those materials out here in these borderlands right as the conversation starts to spill into the details, making it feel like. Perseus demands, "Who are you?" And Shion shoots up a crest, straight up introducing himself as Asclepius from the Panacea Guild, saying he claims he's hunting rare medical materials. And then the girl in the kimono spots the crest, her whole face lights up as it clicks. Angelina's like, "I've seen this around town before," and she presses Shin to make sure, but Shin insists they don't need games, just the truth. Then he drops the bombshell: what he's hunting isn't some random substance. It's the blood of a terrifying gorgon. Perseus totally loses it and barks, "What did you just say?" while everyone nearby watches in shock. She murmurs the words under her breath. Her hands start to tremble, and when she demands what he meant, everything snaps her hand. Her hair writhes into hissing snakes, and she screams that the people who kidnapped her sisters. They're pointing straight at Chin's crew, and she screams, "That's them," then vows she'll never ever forgive them. Perseus is snapping over the kidnapping accusation, while Shin scrambles to explain it's just a huge misunderstanding, but the moment he goes for his weapon, he snaps that there's no point talking, because once she's like this, you can't reason with her. He yanks out a gigantic curved sword, slams it in front of them, and tells them to take it as mercy because soon they won't be anything but rust on his blade. Shin stares at that sword like, "What is this thing?" But he's not about to stand there and get slaughtered, so... And just like that, Perseus explodes forward on pure speed, snapping past Shinoff's guard for one heartbeat. Cassandra surges in and slips her block right into the strike. And as Angelina watches from the side, she tells him she already knew he'd try something like that. Perseus spots her hair and just stops dead in his tracks, staring at her like, "Wait, are you really a demon?" She doesn't even flinch. She cuts in and asks if he's finally ready to sit down and talk, because he's got a demon on his hands now. Perseus doesn't even swing. He starts trembling, snaps that she's pitiful, and insists she must have suffered more than anyone could imagine. He locks eyes with her and presses the question, is she really claiming she's the one hunting now? Perseus and Cassandra's clash skyrockets into chaos. Perseus snarls that the whole fight is going nowhere in circles, and then... He's genuinely panicking. He's never seen Cassandra get shoved back like this, and he can tell Perseus is hauling ass way faster than any normal beer anchor could. Angelina screamed Stion's name the second she saw it. This was turning south fast, and she knew it the moment. Cassandra pours every ounce of power into her strikes just to keep that guy tangled up, because he can barely fend her off as they slam through round after round of brutal hits. She tells Shinji, "Relax, he's got the situation handled," then snaps, "Now turn off that screen and go help the kimono girl before this spirals out of control." Shin bursts into a sprint until the girl snaps her gaze up and declares she's unleashing her demon eye, and her. Her eyes suddenly blaze with a strange glow as she screams at him to turn to stone. Shin snaps his hand up to block the glare, but he's a heartbeat late. The petrification slams into his arm and spreads like lightning. He freezes for a beat, staring at his hand as it turns fully to stone, and the crushing weight of it. It's yanking him back, and the girl clocks it. He already knew her power, yet he still wasn't quick enough to dodge it. Shin realizes that if he hadn't lined up those counters in advance, that final move would have spelled disaster, and now he's just praying Cassandra and the others are doing okay. Perseus stands there, smug as ever, straight up admitting that the mirror shield trick really did catch him off guard while the girl snaps her tongue, clearly pissed. He leans towards Shin and demands to know his next move, then says, "Repent, hand back everyone you stole, and I swear it could be enough to win the princess over and save Shin's life." But she doesn't back off. He tells the guy, "It's way too early to be throwing out speeches like that." Perseus snaps, stunned that Asclepius is still standing, and he can't make sense of it. Because why in the world did the petrification fail? Shin snaps off a healing spell to seal up the damage in his arm, and he shoots a thankful look at Angelina because she stepped in and saved him just in time. Angelina yells at Schwain to finally strike, and that huge guy is already itching to crash straight into the middle of the brawl. Shun practically blurts, "You guys are total lifesavers," just as Schwain rockets straight at the enemy, catching everyone off guard as a tiny object drops through the sky right on schedule, proving Shin's plan is finally starting to click into place. He yanks the girl's arm and tells her, "We're good." They manage to analyze her power, so her evil eye can't touch them anymore. The kimono girl boldly steps forward and tells everyone, "Can you just sheathe your swords for a second? Let's stop this from getting even worse." But Shin isn't finished. He hurries to the group, insisting they talk like real people first, before anyone else gets hurt. He whips around to Schwain and tells him, "Don't kill that guy," while the orc just cracks his knuckles and grins like, "I've got this situation handled." Perseus is freaking out. He can't even process it because Shin is out here barking orders at an orc warrior like it's no big deal. He clenches his composure and swears to himself that tonight of all nights can't possibly be when he quits, turns his back, and walks away. Swain won't let him breathe. He barrels in and slams Perseus into the dirt with one brutal, thunderous hit. Staring down at that beaten knight, someone blurts out, "Was this dude really worth all that chaos we just survived?" Cassandra snaps her weapon back into its sheath, admitting she couldn't nail her rhythm at all through that whole disaster, like the world wouldn't let her move right, while as Shin reaches for the Gorgon girl, he demands to know, "Are you finally ready to sit down and hash this out now that the fighting's done?" The girl drops her gaze and surrenders, saying she'll talk so long as they promise they won't kill her tonight, ending the standoff for good. Shen watches the group finally settle, and it hits him like a shock. He never even imagined this going any other way. The crew slips the talk to a hidden watermill house nearby, tucked in the waterfall's shadow as the moonlight drips over everything. Right when he's inside, Perseus drops his head on the floor like a full-on apology tour, and that's when we learn he used to be a total beer-ank solo adventurer. Cassandra tells him to drop it because they're all still standing, and Shin shoots a look around, asking if everyone can honestly agree. The girl nods like, "Yeah, talking it out is the only way," then immediately cuts the chatter and dives straight into business. She tells them to hit restart fresh names, real introductions, and a clean slate, staying right there with Perseus while he introduced himself like a king, claiming he led the B-ranked Legion, a crew that hailed from the city of Corinth. The girl fires up hot drinks for everyone, praying the flavor lands exactly how they like it. Shin gulped hard as she stared at him, shocked at how fast he'd somehow made himself at home. She scoots closer and blurts out, "So you're a secret monster tamer, right?" And it totally blindsides Shin. Shen cuts through the confusion, saying his gift is really the universal translator. Then a voice from the side snaps back that he's got it all completely wrong. He keeps pushing forward, insisting he can only hear and talk to animals and monsters, no real control at all. And Medusa leans in, demanding to know if that's truly what's happening. Like, Shin just keeps moving, but those creatures tailing him, are they really choosing to follow, or are they being forced to? She smirks and confirms, "That's exactly it. Those are your precious comrades." And Medusa looks straight up stunned when she realizes he's actually telling the truth. Perseus starts yelling that no one can make sense of the princess's fate. Then Angelina snaps at him to shut up, and he cuts himself off. The girl finally steps up and gives her real introduction, Medusa, straight from the Gorgon village of Grai. She used to make anyone who met her gaze freeze to stone, at least. That's how it was until recently. She brags that the curse crumbled so easily, then Angelina cuts in, telling her to just call him short like Angelina. Angelina couldn't stop thinking about one burning question: what medicine had he used on Chen earlier? Shin says he gets exactly how brutal it is, while Angelina reminds him that even the top-tier mages still struggle like hell to break curses. But she's still thrown off by how quickly he bulldozed through everything, like he tossed that potion together on the spot without even blinking. She admits that, back when she was an adventurer, she'd never seen anyone pull off a stunt like that, so she starts telling you all about that the truth is sitting in front of them. Medusa spots it instantly, calling out a few specific bottles, each one a different color. Medusa's eyes go wide. She's utterly baffled and blurts out, "What do you mean, dragging those potion bottles out like that?" Shin steps up to lay it all out for everyone, and Angelina jumps in right behind him, spilling exactly how they prepared for that meeting with a Gorgon. He breaks down how he tweaks every ingredient, trying mix after mix, until he finally lands on the perfect formula because he's forced to whip up multiple versions just to beat the petrification problem. Clutching a petrified mushroom in his hand, he leans in and tells them that, after seeing the real analysis results, they tore through dusty old books and forgotten stories for ages, hunting for the one way to make it work, and that's when everything led. Angelina leans over the table as the magic circle flares bright in front of her eyes. One drop of the brand new potion splashes onto the petrified mushroom. It immediately snaps back to its true form, and Angelina fires up the crowd. "Watch closely, right now." Shin stands there like he owns the moment, and then bam, he finally names his freaky gift the Child of the Medicine God, which, giving him the power to break down and cure practically any disease, curse, or poison, And on top of that, he can brew the meds himself. Perseus snaps and demands to know straight up if Shin is really one of those legendary Golden Fleece members. He suddenly snaps to it, that's why it all felt so familiar, while Angelina just sits there, taking it all in as he connects every piece. Perseus tells him that even back in his faraway hometown, people are already talking about that group like they're rising stars packed with gifts so insane they feel unreal. Shen grills Medusa, asking if this is the proof she needs that he'll never do anything shady with her blood, while Perseus jumps in, saying meeting him is a massive honor. Medusa hesitates and admits the truth. Her blood is infamous for being pure, no joke poison, lethal to any human who even touches it. Shen snaps that she's only half right, then proves it when their kind's transformation turns that deadly poison into a powerful healing cure. Shin swears the secret clicked into place only after he studied the real deal, and Medusa finally admits that even back in her own village, the truth about her blood is known by just a handful of people. And she still can't believe she pulled the whole thing off and figured it out all by herself. Perseus just stands there, genuinely stunned, thinking, wait, how is it possible the princess's blood was hiding something this insane? And he starts ranting about how being a knight is pure, massive responsibility. So Shin cuts in and basically tells him, yeah, you're something else. Shin pivots the conversation, says he heard Perseus used to be an adventurer, and then makes it clear Cassandra's a top-tier fighter, even among B ranks. So he leans in and asks how Perseus truly pulled it off, because he's certain his usual sword skills never could have done the trick. Perseus blurts out that it was pure luck from the weapon matchup right as Shin stares at him and asks if he means that weirdly shaped sword sitting there in plain sight. Perseus blurts out, yeah, this sword's called Harp, and brags that he forged it as a masterpiece, built with a creator's gift meant to turn him into a monster slayer because of the reason he built the thing just to survive Gorgons, but it ended up saving him in a way he never even imagined. Shin finally clocks it this blade isn't just any sword. It's a slayer built to hunt female monsters, and that's the exact reason it crushed Cassandra earlier. Shin points out that under normal circumstances, an ordinary monster wouldn't even be able to move yet. Yet Cassandra dragged him into it, forcing him to whip out his trump card, the mirror shield, and when he shows it off, he even tells her that the loan is seriously impressive. Then he whips around to Perseus and demands answers. How could anyone with that kind of skill just quit? Especially when Shin's own gift is basically a bottomless money pit. Perseus snaps that city life had turned unbearable, then admits he only came back because his partner's mess blew up into a huge scandal. Shin winces at that, groaning that it sounds like a total disaster, but Perseus doesn't even flinch as he carries on. He shrugs it off and laughs, insisting it was pure luck because it's the only reason he ended up finding his princess, while Shin and Medusa just stand there, staring at him with blank, stunned faces. The vibe flips the moment Shin brings up that old non-aggression pact between Danny Village and Madhu's hometown, and points out that back in the day, some folks would still linger to swap goods, but by the time he came back, that whole hustle had vanished completely. Turns out some nasty sickness slammed into the village, choking off every trade deal, and once monsters started pouring onto the roads, nobody dared come in or leave. Perseus admits that he knew nothing about medicine, so he handed the healing off to the experts and threw himself into guard duty every single moment. Perseus whips back into full drama, strikes a heroic pose, and screams that this is finally his big, fateful meeting with the song strip. He starts rambling about the moonlit night, but Medusa literally cuts him off right away while Shin snaps at him to stop because they're trying to talk. Medusa goes deadly serious and tells everyone that people have been vanishing from her village lately. Though they've searched everywhere, there's not a single trace to be found. She drops her gaze, and you can tell she's wrecked. Then she says it like a gut punch. Even her older sister has gone missing lately too. She presses on, saying she heard some stranger slipped into the human village, so she rushed over hoping to catch the kidnapper, only to find Perseus. She still hasn't sniffed out the real culprit. She can't crack the mystery, and somehow the only thing she gets is this creepy weirdo shadowing her everywhere. So she realized there was only one move left. She had to become bait, lure the kidnapper in, and finally, the reason behind it all started to click in her head. Angelina scans the road and insists no one looks suspicious, and Shin shoots back that the only people they've seen at all are Perseus and Medusa. Perseus blurts that not a single soul in his village is tough enough to yank Gorgons for a kidnapping, and that makes the whole situation feel even more twisted. Shun tightens his fist as the truth slams into him. There's only one possible answer for who's behind all of this. As the truth slams into him, Shin whips his gaze to Angelina. If the Gorgons are getting snatched without a fight, then a traitor is lurking inside the tribe. The moon looms high above the clouds, and the night keeps stretching on and on. Shin jumps out of the carriage and spots Angelina waiting by the campfire. She praises him for his hard work, then leans in and asks where Asu is hiding. Shin plops down and admits he let him crash because he'd blown through way too much magic. Angelina just nods and listens closely as he keeps talking, insisting that even if she was ready to brawl, things back there were just on a whole other level of chaos. He says it's one thing to figure out a B-ranked curse on the spot, but it's a whole other monster to slam together a cure in real time, and then he drops the jaw that's a massive. Angelina locks eyes with her reflection in the blade, stunned by just how wild Shin's skills are compared to her own, and the guilt hits hard, because she couldn't even buy them a moment, admitting she doesn't exactly deal in magic swords every day. She clamps her sword in a vice-like grip, scowling at herself, and snaps that this whole mess is brutally frustrating. She starts spiraling over what happens if they get trapped in a place like that again, especially if there's no healer around to pull them out. Suddenly, she shoots up, eyes blazing with pure focus, and tells Shin she's finally locked in on what she has to do. Cassandra locks eyes with Shun, resolve blazing, and says even if her special powers won't work, she'll still prove she can fight back. Then things spiral from there, leading. That's when Shin scoots closer and blurts out how genuinely grateful he is to have her as his partner, and that sharp, sudden compliment knocks her flat, completely stunned, while, as she scrambles to get her thoughts straight, she blurts, "What happened to you all of a sudden?" But Shin won't fold. He stares past her, straight toward the future. He lays it out plain, the A-rank world, and higher is exactly where they're headed, and it was Cassandra who finally yanked his blinders off. Cassandra just bursts into laughter, teasing him like of course it happens since he's the partner of the legendary Return of the Demon King, while Shinji snaps back, saying it's all baseless rumors, but then he cuts himself off but then she snaps serious again, saying she heard all kinds of talk about the Legion on her way here. Turns out the guild has already made sure everyone around Corinth knows exactly who they are, and Shin instantly realizes the heat is on. He crosses his arms, eyes locked, knowing one wrong move could flip everything and turn them from the hunters into the hunted. With the danger hanging over their heads, Shin snaps. He won't just finish the job and call it done. Sure, he'll bring back the blood Asu asked for, but now he's determined to mend the Gorgon's broken relationship for real. If the Legion can finally forge a real bond with the Gree, it's a massive win that could pay off big time down the road. He just sinks by the fire, locked on the roaring flames as the night drags on. With a sly smirk, Cassandra catches Shine off guard, calls him out, and tells him that deep down, he's only trying to save those girls because he can't stand to let them go. And it completely throws Shin off as she laughs it off, swearing she knew all along and insisting it's exactly like him to act like that. She tells him, "Don't sweat it, every single person is going to feel the exact same way about it." And then her eyes lock on him, dead serious. She makes him swear. If he's ever about to slip into the wrong choice, she'll stop him no matter what it takes, as long. If he keeps walking the right road, she'll be the blade that fights for him. Shin only manages to answer with her name, but then, after everything, he finally smiles, tells her yes, and admits that's what being partners is really about, as they seal it with a fist bump. Next morning, Asu stumbles out of the tent, yawning so hard it feels like it could shake the ground, then marches over to greet the whole crew, and Cassandra is already on her feet, racing to meet her, and she slides in with warm bowls of breakfast like a perfect morning surprise. Schwain finally shows up too, slinging a huge beast he caught over his shoulder, and grills Shin on whether he actually got enough good rest. Asu flashes this tired but bright smile and tells them, "I slept like a log thanks to all of you for watching out for me." Everyone crowds around the table as breakfast hits the table, and man, it's finally time to dig in. As they dig in, Cassandra fires off the plan Danny Village is their launch pad, and once they're set, they'll start pulling intel. Throw everything they've got into tracking down the people who got taken. Schwane's fully locked in with the plan, and then Angelina steps in, and she straight up asks the group what they think about her detailed plans for their stay in the village. The crew barrels out and follows the road, right as their carriage rolls up to the gates of Dawn Eye Village. Perseus is already waiting, yelling out a huge welcome as he greets the Panacea Company members. Angelina shoots Lord Perseus a graceful bow and tells him, with heartfelt gratitude, that he didn't have to travel all this way just to greet her so. So Perseus orders them to haul the carriage with him, then strides ahead and promises, "Follow me. I'll take you straight to the chief's place." Shin glanced back at the villagers packed in the crowd, and an awkward heat crawled up his chest as they watched them go by. They pull up to this huge building, and Perseus leans in like, "This is the village chief's place. Right here is where the whole meeting happens." Boots click across the floor as a newcomer barrels up to the group, shouting whether Perseus is here. It's the village chief's daughter, Andromeda, marching in with zero patience, demanding to know if Perseus is the one causing all this noise. Shin asks if she should even get out of bed, but Andromeda just bursts into laughter and says that special medicine worked wonders. She feels totally fine. Angelina strides into the scene and politely asks Lord Perseus to introduce everyone to each other. Perseus brings Andromeda straight to the team, and the second she turns to Shin, she can't help but ask if she's the adventurer Pell mentioned earlier. She goes along with the disguise, slips into character, and introduces herself as a scoopist, then proudly reveals she's a medicine merchant from the city. Then she shoots a signal to the real Shin, telling him to rush over with the usual supplies they always carry, setting the stage for. Perseus and Andromeda lean into the crate as it crackles with high-grade treasures, and Andromeda can't help wondering, are they really seeing the real doctor? Perseus is straight up blown away by how insane the gear looks, while Andromeda squirms, nervously asking if it's really fine for them to just grab all of it. Sheen just flashes a warm little smile and insists, "This is exactly what we're talking about," then pushes the gift into their hands to kick off their new friendship the right way. Andromeda turns to the crew, thanks them for saving the day, and asks straight up if they're here to see her father. She orders Pell to lead everyone to the dining room while she rushes off to find him, and Pell just grins, saying he's got it handled. While they walk, Shin snaps. Why is she up and walking if she was supposed to be bedridden? She's convinced that Miracle Cure has a hidden secret, so she pushes them to talk to the chief first. They're led to the man in charge, and he throws open the doors to welcome Asclepius and the guards into their isolated home. He introduces himself as Cepheus, the official chief of Danny Village. He tells them, "Stop just standing there after that brutal trip," then waves everyone in and says, "Take a seat, come on." After they finally settle in with drinks, he leans in and says he's certain you've heard the rumors about what's going on, but before he can. But then he explains it back before everything went bad. They traded with the other village, until the Gorgons crashed their meeting and started slaughtering anyone who showed up. Everything was fine until one day, Cepheus explained what changed, and you could tell he was completely shaken. The chief says he heard a traveling merchant sold the village a special antidote, but the second Andromeda hears that, worry hits her hard. He tells you straight up years ago his daughter got poisoned, and it was touch and go whether she'd even survive. He admits it's basically a miracle nobody's died yet, but if this keeps going, it won't be long before everything turns into real disaster. Andromeda dodges the topic fast, saying she heard their escorts are huge deal adventurers, and when Angelina backs it up as a top-tier guy in the city, Shen thanks her for the intro and drops his name, while Angelina slips to the chief and reveals he runs a beer-ranked crew, the Legion. He steps up and calls Cassandra their swordswoman, then reveals the truth she's a half-demon, and when she speaks, he makes it clear she's the partner he trusts more than anyone. Then he brings in Lime because she's the one who takes care of the healing for their whole crew. The villagers gawk in full shock at a slime perched on his shoulder, while Perseus just stands there, calmly watching the chaos unfold. She admits she can't fault them for being shocked, and then Lime grins and insists he's not a bad slime at all. So Shin tells the little guy, "Don't sweat it, I'm talking about a harmless healer, and there's nothing for you to fear." Shin interrupts to say, "I've got one more guy to introduce," and then drops the name Swain, an orc warrior who was back there guarding the carriage while everything around them was in chaos, while a tiny kid from the village trots up, then confidently pats the side of the massive beast they hauled in. The kid snaps his eyes up and locks onto Swain's terrifying face, staring back. His whole body goes rigid, stunned, speechless. Andromeda snatches the kid and yanks him back at the last second, while Swain just freezes there, utterly baffled by the chaos. The villagers start whispering like they've uncovered a secret, pestering Shin. "So you really tamed monsters and demons?" And Shin just shrugs, cutting it off. He doesn't have that kind of crazy power. He tells them his power is called devilry, and all it takes is respectful conversation to earn a demon's trust. Cassandra panics and blurts that she can't follow him because of some gift, but Angelina only smiles and says she's trusted him from day one. Right then, Shin steps up and offers to help the village tackle its massive Gorgon problem. The chief looks unbelievably relieved and blurts out that they truly appreciate it because they were just moments away from scraping together every last coin for a guild request. So Shin asks if they can stand guard for the time being, and the chief swears they'll have a killer reward waiting for them. Shinad strides in and makes it crystal clear he's got this under control, and he's ready to dive into the action. Days roll by, and the crew finally slips into village life, pitching in fast and helping the locals hold the line with their defenses. A local drops off some plain soup and bread, then blurts out an apology like this is genuinely all they've got for now. Shun tells her not to fret because they've already been chewing on dry rations anyway. He's honestly grateful for the break. Then the woman tells them to yell anytime they need something, and Angelina swears she'll come back and let her know the second anything pops up. The second they're alone, Shin leans in and tells him Swain and the others are still out on patrol, but then he hesitates. But he's dying to spill every detail they uncovered, how he spent the last few days shadowing the guards, and still hasn't spotted a single big group lurking nearby. Lately, the village hasn't seen a single sign of an attack, and Angelina is quick to point out that the local guards are way tougher and more skilled than anyone gives them credit for. She admits she's honestly stunned watching the villagers and guards click with Lime and the others almost instantly, especially since bringing a whole crew of monsters to the place like that was a total gamble, but when it all worked out, he could finally exhale. Angelina shifts the mood instantly, gripping the room as she declares it's time to dig into the report about the victims from the last incident. Shin wraps up his checkup on Andromeda and the other villagers who got attacked, and Angelina can't stop staring at just how unreal that miracle cure's level is. Shin jumps in and points out that, yeah, to a regular person, everyone looks totally fine, perfect even. Even with the villagers buzzing around like nothing's wrong, this recovery is just a sham pure show. He tells them the poison's still trapped inside their bodies, and all they've been doing is buying time because the medicine can snap and fail at any moment. And Angelina gets totally blindsided, blurting out, if even someone at Shin's level can't fix this, then what hope is there? Shin admits he could handle it, but he warns it's way too risky to reveal his moves when they still don't even know who's pulling the strings behind all this, which Angelina has to swallow and sign off on, even though they're still stumbling around with nothing but guesswork. For now, Shin decides to slip the locals some of his special tea, giving them a quick stamina boost mostly because he wants payback on the person who pulled this stunt. But he knows they have to hunt down who's really behind this before this whole mess drags on any longer. But here's the real kicker. The antidote they used on the villagers carried one very specific kind of blood inside it. Angelina's eyes widen as the truth hits, so she asks, does this mean the people attacking us are really tied to the village traitor? Shin nods and says it's pretty much nailed, especially since they're facing the same poisoner who used that stuff before. Cassandra ponders a Gorgon poison user, and you can practically feel it. This kind of threat is way beyond what a B-rank adventurer is supposed to survive. Still, she ignites with confidence and declares this is the perfect moment to prove what they're truly capable of. Shin and Angelina stand side by side on the ship, locked in, swearing they'll pour everything they've got into the next move. Angelina demands the plan from here, and Shin grins he's determined to go scout that hidden village. He even thinks about marching straight to the village chief and saying, "I can use my special gift to talk these people down." Angelina says the mysterious merchant will probably ghost them anyway, so they might as well charge straight into the lion's den and finish this fast. Cassandra tells them that if they're truly going after that hidden village, they're going to need Perseus in their corner, no exceptions. Even though Shin wants to dodge a messy, head-on brawl if he can, Cassandra pushes him hard to at least get their gear ready for whatever chaos is coming. Right as the group wraps up their plans to move out tonight, a brutal bang slams the door shut and rips the conversation to shreds. Timo's one of the village guys barrels in like a hurricane, eyes wild, yelling that he finally tracked them down. Sweat pours down his face and his breaths come in broken gasps. But he still manages to shout that this is a massive emergency, everyone has to move right now. She snatches him to steady his shaking, tells him to take a second to breathe, and blurts, "What's happening?" And right as the truth starts to land, the moment cuts off. So Timo finally drops it. Turns out a whole horde of trolls just marched into the forest right at the edge of the village. Those massive monsters are already crashing through the forest, stomping toward total destruction.